Chapter 307. Sister Lanlan, tell me quickly. Xia Yuyu grabbed Xia Lanlan's hand and urged her. Sigh. Xia Lanlan's face sank and sighed. She wanted to tease Xia Yuyu, but when she saw Xia Yuyu's expression change, she didn't dare to tease her anymore. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. He successfully passed the heaven's punishment and stepped into the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, according to the information I've obtained, his heavenly punishment is extremely powerful. It's comparable to the heavenly punishment of a half-step to blessed realm cultivator, but he managed to withstand it. Therefore, if nothing goes wrong, you should be able to see him in the friendly competition between the clans. Really? Sister Lanlan, you can't lie to me. Xia Yuyu was pleasantly surprised and said in surprise. Why would I lie to you? How could the news from the Wantong Chamber of Commerce be fake? Xia Lanlan said. That's great. Big Sister Lanlan, when the time comes, can you? Xia Yuyu whispered into Xia Lanlan's ear, her beautiful face flushed red, and Xia Lanlan's eyes widened more and more. Peak of the middle stage of the incarnation realm. Very good. Qing Tian, you're a rare genius in our Yuan Gate. I want you to take first place in this intersect competition. Even if you meet Xia Yuyu, you can't give in. This concerns our Yuan Gate's reputation, and we can't let anyone surpass us. No matter how outstanding a woman is, she will be conquered by a man. Only by displaying absolute power and potential can you conquer her. Do you understand? Don't worry, Gate Master. No one can take away my first place. Chu Qingtian exuded a domineering aura as he said arrogantly. Chu Qingtian was obviously much more powerful than he was before he entered Sky City. His gains in the Sky City were also huge. After stepping out of the Sky City, he triggered the heaven's punishment and stepped into the incarnation realm. The solid foundation of the nascent soul realm and the accumulated power completely exploded. In less than 5 months, he broke through the early stage of the incarnation realm and advanced to the peak of the middle stage. This speed was definitely something to be proud of. Furthermore, he had already advanced the heavenly dominance technique to a higher level, the overlooking the heavens and earth technique. This made his aura even more domineering. This was the benefit of the sect's disciples cultivating according to the series of lost arts. There was no trouble for Chen how to change it back and forth. The Earth-grade hegemonic Qi technique of heaven and earth and the heaven-grade hegemonic Qi technique of heaven and earth were of the same origin. As long as the hegemonic Qi technique of heaven and earth was cultivated to the peak of perfection, one could naturally step into the hegemonic Qi technique of heaven and earth and cultivate it with half the effort. On top of that, Chu Qingtian still had many trump cards. There was no reason for him not to be first. He did not even place Xia Yuyu, who had stepped into the incarnation realm earlier than him, in his eyes. Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and the other super geniuses of the 9th rank sects were also full of ambition and confidence. Sharpening the sword for 10 years, testing its edge in a single day. All of them were proud and arrogant. Who would be willing to admit defeat? All the sects, even the disciples of the low-level sects, hoped that they would be able to hold their heads up high in the intersect competition that was held once every 10 years and become famous in the cultivation world. This was not only a matter of fame, but also related to the interests and luck of the sect and oneself. To change or not to change? In the cultivation room, Chen Hao sat cross-legged and pondered as he looked at the jade scroll that the elder of imparting techniques had personally sent to him. If I don't change it with my current strength, I have a 60% chance of winning against someone who is half a step to the incarnation realm. But someone who is at the incarnation realm. If it is Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and the others, I'm afraid I won't have any chance of winning. If I change it, the selection will begin in 10 days, and the real competition will begin in a month. It's just a selection. I can pass with just the strength of my physical body. Although a month's time is short, it should be enough for me to maintain my current true yuan. With the help of the spirit spring, spirit herbs, and supreme-grade primordial crystal stones, I will also have time to cultivate after the competition begins. What is there to be afraid of? Change. After a while, Chen Hao's eyes shone with arrogance as he made his choice. A year ago, when he was only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm, he had decided to participate. Moreover, he was arrogant and maintained a belief in everything he did. If he did not do it, he would not do it. If he did, he would do it to the best of his ability. So what if he was at the Incarnation realm? He would trample on all of them, especially those who had once been hostile to him and were insufferably arrogant. After taking a deep breath, Chen Hao did not hesitate and directly poured his consciousness into the Jade Scroll. Star Technique, a supreme-grade heaven-class secret technique. It was a secret technique that could support a cultivator to the half-step primordial soul realm. Perhaps only Chen Hao, with his abnormal constitution and comprehension, would choose such a technique that was completely beyond his realm. Boom! In an instant, a majestic and pure consciousness appeared in Chen Hao's mind with a terrifying pressure. Along with the mantra, Yuan Tairan's image appeared in his mind. Obviously, Yuan Tairan had personally condensed this Jade Scroll. Not only had he integrated the mantra into it, but he had also explained it to Chen Hao in detail. At the same time, he had also condensed the aura and mysteries of this supreme-grade secret technique. This made it easier for Chen Hao to comprehend it when he cultivated. Chen Hao's consciousness was immersed in it, firmly imprinting the mantra and the mysteries of the aura in the depths of his mind. Immediately, Chen Hao did not immediately start cultivating. Instead, he verified it word by word in his mind over and over again. Only when he was sure that there were no mistakes did Chen Hao begin to activate the mantra. Without distractions, there was no way to be without thoughts. Ordinary cultivators would need to meditate for a long time to reach this state, but Chen Hao entered it in an instant. This was the benefit of having a strong soul force. After about an hour, a trace of the Star Technique's True Yuan appeared in Chen Hao's Dantian. This trace of True Yuan would become the Star Technique's True Yuan seed, absorbing and refining the Longevity Technique's True Yuan in Chen Hao's Dantian. This situation was dozens of times faster than the 3 days that Yuan Tairan had said. Moreover, Chen Hao was pleasantly surprised that a trace of Star Technique's True Yuan could be used to refine the Longevity Technique's True Yuan in his nascent soul. This was very similar to when he had obtained Itoda's nascent soul. The only difference was that once he started, Chen Hao could no longer use the Longevity Technique's True Yuan. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would have been wasted. Moreover, his consciousness had to be locked on to the Longevity Technique's True Yuan at all times. Otherwise, that weak trace of Star Technique's True Yuan would be swallowed up by the Longevity Technique's True Yuan. The next day, when it was time to choose a spirit weapon, Chen Hao did not go at all. On the third night, Chen Hao, who had been in seclusion for 3 days, finally stepped out of the palace. Step by step, he walked towards the palace closest to him, which was also where Helian Wuzi lived. Motherfucker! Not being able to use True Yuan is really inconvenient. Originally, it would only take a moment to reach the 2 palaces, but Chen Hao could only rely on his physical strength to walk over. At this time, he felt that the closest palace was not close at all. These 2 little girls, I don't really care about them. Both of them are so angry. If they don't agree, I'll be in trouble. Chen Hao said to himself as he walked. He did not want the sect master to know that he had changed to cultivate the Star Technique. Firstly, he did not want to be too shocking and worrying. Secondly, he did not want to be criticized. The sect master had given him the jade slip, but he had emphasized that he could not cultivate before the sect exchange. Therefore, Chen Hao could only ask the 2 girls for help. There was no other way. He could not fly. Dong dong dong. Chen Hao used his feet to measure the ground step by step. He walked to the front of Helian Wuzi's palace, raised his fist, and knocked on the palace door. At this time, it was already late at night. In the dead of the night, everything was silent. This heavy knocking sound was unusually ear-piercing. They were going to set off early tomorrow morning. Helian Wuzi had already stopped cultivating. At this moment, she was soaking comfortably in the bath. She closed her eyes and gently washed her delicate body. Her proud and full twin peaks were faintly discernible in the clear water. Her sparkling and translucent jade-like skin emitted a faint luster. Coupled with that beautiful little face, any man who saw this scene would be furious. However, Helian Wuzi, who was enjoying her last bath before setting off, was awakened by Chen Hao's knocking on the door. What is he doing here? Splash! Helian Wuxi jumped out of the bath like a conditioned reflex. Her graceful and exquisite delicate body was exposed. She hurriedly wiped her body and quickly put on her clothes. It was not pajamas. This was a habit that she had developed after Chen Hao repeatedly warned her. Of course, this was only a situation that appeared because of Chen Hao. It was also a habit that she had developed for Chen Hao. What is it? After Helian Wuxi opened the door, she looked at Chen Hao, who seemed to have restrained all his aura. She was expressionless and even a little cold as she asked, "Let's go in and talk. There is a very important matter." Chen Hao smiled slightly. He directly pushed away Helian Wuxi's small hand and entered the palace. What is so important that he is looking for her for? In another palace, Tantai Lien frowned and looked quite dissatisfied. Obviously, she was dissatisfied that Chen Hao looked for Helian Wuxi and not her. Such a loud knocking sound, even if Tantai Lien did not release her perception, she could still hear it. After the doors to the palace closed, Tantai Lien's consciousness carefully tried to enter the palace to investigate. However, there were many ceiling barriers that blocked her perception outside. Tantai Lien was even more dissatisfied. Sneaky. What are they doing? What is so important that you need to set up a restriction? Helian Wuxi asked curiously. However, her expression was still neither cold nor hot. It's nothing. I just came to see you. Have you used up the primordial crystal stones? What do you lack? If you need anything, remember to tell me. Don't make yourself suffer. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said in a very gentle voice. Chen Hao? Helian Wuxi looked as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at Chen Hao and asked, "If I'm not, could it be that you are?" Chen Hao said gloomily, "Tell me, what do you want? I don't want to fight with you now." "What fight? I have something that I need you and Xiaolian to help me with. I've changed to an inner force unique skill." "What? Are you crazy?" Helian Wuxi was instantly shocked. "Don't worry. I don't want the sect leader and the others to know. So, when we set off tomorrow, I can only let you and Xiaolian fly me. Also, they can't see it. So, we have to be a little closer." Third update. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who voted and tipped. Thank you. Chapter 308. I won't do it. You really won't do it? You go and find her in front of everyone. Tantai Lien naturally knew what she had to do to hide from everyone's eyes. Although her relationship with Tantai Lien and Chen Hao was already like a flea on a monk's head, how could she do it in front of everyone? All right then, I'll go and find Xiaolian. Remember to tell me if you need anything, I'll go first. Chen Hao had already expected this result and said straightforwardly. Not only did he not force her, he even smiled and said with great concern. This made Helian Wuxi feel strange. Her mind was locked on Chen Hao until Chen Hao entered Tantai Lien's palace and could no longer be detected. She then snorted and said to herself, she definitely won't agree, changing her cultivation technique at this time, what a lunatic. But he should be able to make it in time, right? After witnessing Chen Hao's miracles again and again, although Helian Wuxi was surprised, she was not too worried. When did he not turn the impossible into reality? In Tantai Lien's palace. Chen Hao went to find Helian Wuxi first and then went to find her. With a woman's delicate mind, Tantai Lien naturally would not be nice to Chen Hao. But Chen Hao did not seem to care. After entering, he also asked Tantai Lien to set up layers of seals. Then he asked her about her well-being, making Tantai Lien think that the sun rose from the west. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that Chen Hao was being unaccountably solicitous and was hiding evil intentions. However, after Chen Hao said that he had changed his cultivation technique, Tantai Lien's expression changed drastically. She looked at Chen Hao in a daze. Shortly after, Chen Hao brought up the matter of wanting to help. However, his words this time were obviously very different from Helian Wuxi's. Moreover, after hesitating for a while, Tantai Lien nodded and said, "All right, I'll help you in the first half. But, are you sure you can recover your strength before the competition starts?" "Don't worry," Chen Hao said confidently. After walking out of Tan Tai Lian's palace, the corners of this fellow's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an evil smile no matter how one looked at it. In the palace, Tan Tai Lian said to herself, "If she dares to help, why wouldn't I dare? Besides, he and I already, what's there to be embarrassed about? Xiaolian's leaving? Xiao Wu hurry?" The next day, early in the morning, after exiting his cultivation state, Chen Hao stepped out of the palace. Tan Tai Lian was already prepared. When she heard Chen Hao's call, she immediately flew over. Although she was mentally prepared, when she really had to do it, there was still a trace of shyness on her little face. However, when she saw Helian Wuzi stepping out of the palace and frowning slightly, looking at her and Chen Hao, Tan Tai Lian mustered up her courage and walked to the side of the smiling Chen Hao. She gently held Chen Hao's arm and held their hands together. At the same time, she poured her own vital essence directly into Chen Hao's body and slowly rose into the air. Helian Wuzi snorted when she saw this. She scolded Tan Tai Lian for being thick-skinned in her heart. But when she saw how intimate they were, an indescribable emotion welled up in her heart. Everyone in the sect knows that I had a duel with her because of Chen Hao. They're holding hands, but if others see this, they'll think I lost to her. She's so thick-skinned that she's willing to help. She's just found out by the sect leader. What's there to help? Maybe the sect leader will think of a way to help him. How infuriating! Helian Wuzi thought to herself. Her beautiful face was cloudy. The more she thought about it, the more depressed she felt. "Xiao Wu, why are you in a daze? Come here, let's go together." Chen Hao didn't show any expression on his face. But when he looked at Helian Wuzi, he knew that she could settle this in minutes. She's not afraid. What do I have to be afraid of? I have to be thick-skinned or I'll lose face. When Helian Wuzi thought of this, she flew to Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian's side. Under Tan Tai Lian's surprised gaze, she held onto Chen Hao's left hand. Her face was red, but she was expressionless. She looked like she was fighting spirit. Not to be outdone, she raised her energy and poured it into Chen Hao's body. "Aren't you? Okay, let's go quickly. We'll be late if we're late." Chen Hao interrupted Tan Tai Lian and said loudly. This was something that Tan Tai Lian could not say out loud. Otherwise, his deception of driving a wedge between them would be exposed. "Can I change my mind?" Helian Wuzi didn't hear Tan Tai Lian's unfinished question, but she didn't understand the meaning behind it. At the same time, she urged her energy to fly with Chen Hao and glared at Tan Tai Lian. Tan Tai Lian was so angry that she turned her face away and ignored this unruly and unreasonable little girl. Therefore, Chen Hao was like a big boss. He was hugged by the two beauties and rushed to the gathering at Jiaxing Peak. When the three of them appeared in this manner, it really blinded everyone's eyes. Their eyeballs fell to the ground, and all the young disciples were envious. Even the sect master Yuan Tairan was a little dumbfounded. How could one be so good at picking up girls when they were cultivating? Yuan Tairan, the first elder, the fourth elder, and the seventh elder led the team for this intersect competition. After leading the team to Jiaxing City, they directly took the teleportation array and set off for Dongxian City. Dongxian City was the closest city to the Yuan Gate. It was also the most famous, largest, and most prosperous city in the Eastern Continent. It was the headquarters of the Eastern Continent Immortal Dao Alliance, and there were many large chambers of commerce. The city itself occupied an area of nearly 10,000 miles. If the Eastern Continent was compared to a dynasty, then Dongxian City would be the imperial city. The intersect competition that was held once every 10 years was held in Dongxian City. Even if they took the teleportation array from the Jiaxing sect, it would still take more than a day to arrive. In the teleportation array, Chen Hao couldn't waste more than a day's time. Therefore, when he stepped out of the Jiaxing sect, although Chen Hao's eyes were open and his mind wasn't completely immersed in cultivation, he carefully began to refine his true yuan. In any case, with the two girls' energy concealment, even if others could see that Chen Hao wasn't circulating his true yuan, no one suspected anything. After all, being a boss had always been like this. Moreover, under Chen Hao's instructions, the three of them followed behind the team. This made Yi Feixue, who wanted to come over and chat with Chen Hao, shrink back, as she didn't want to disturb the three of them. However, if one observed carefully, they would find that although the three of them were intimate, they didn't seem to be harmonious. As the boss, Chen Hao had a faint smile on his face from beginning to end. His deep black eyes seemed to be unfocused and motionless. As for the two beautiful girls, they turned their faces to the side and didn't even look at each other. Not only did they not give off a harmonious feeling, but they were filled with the smell of war without smoke. Dongxian City. At this moment, groups of cultivators from all over the eastern continent were constantly emerging from the transportation arrays of countless large merchant guilds. Some were rogue cultivators, some were sect disciples, and the most eye-catching ones were undoubtedly the small teams led by the upper echelons of the sections. Without a doubt, these were the young geniuses who came to participate in the intersect competition. As the intersect competition held once every 10 years in the eastern continent, the flow of people in Dongxian City had reached an unprecedented scale a month ago. As the time of the competition approached, the flow of people increased. This was a grand event that all the sects in the eastern continent had to participate in. This was a grand event that affected all the cultivators in the eastern continent. It was a grand event that concerned the sect's grades, benefits, luck, and future. All the super young geniuses of the sects in the eastern continent would gather, representing the future strength of the eastern continent. In the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's large transportation array, a dazzling light flashed once again. A group of people appeared in the transportation array at the same time, and the one leading them was Yuan Tairan. Phew! The moment they walked out of the transportation array, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. Obviously, traveling non-stop between teleportation formations for more than a day was an extremely boring thing to do. At this moment, they finally arrived at their destination, Dongxian City. Third grade sect, Xianxia sect? Is this sect leader Yuan? Welcome, welcome. I am an inner disciple of the Yuan Gate. This is the residence token of your Xianxia sect. Several Yuan Gate disciples stood proudly at the entrance of the transportation array. All of them were full of energy and spirit, and their appearances were impressive. More importantly, the first impression they gave off was that the word arrogance was written all over their faces. After seeing the attire of Yuan Tairan and the rest, one of them stepped forward and threw a token at Yuan Tairan. He was only a half-step nascent soul inner disciple. If he had such an attitude towards Chen Hao and the other disciples, it was still acceptable. After all, the Yuan Gate that dominated the entire eastern continent had always been this arrogant. However, such an arrogant attitude towards the sect leader of the Xianxia sect was a little too much. After all, he was a half-step to the creation realm expert. Even the elders and sect leader of the Yuan Gate would have to exchange a few pleasantries. Yuan Tairan frowned slightly. The first elder, fourth elder, and seventh elder also did not look too good. However, they could not flare up. Not only that, they also had to stop the disciples from being dissatisfied. At this moment, Chen Hao's eyes, which seemed to be in a daze, also regained their consciousness and looked at the Yuan Gate disciple. The disciple's eyes were also filled with a trace of mockery and naked jealousy as he looked at Chen Hao, who was hugging two girls in each arm. Chen Hao's photographic memory allowed him to instantly recognize this disciple. It was the disciple who had participated in the test in Sky City. However, this disciple's strength was not enough for Chen Hao to pay attention to his name. Seeing the other party's mocking eyes, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of disdain. However, he did not fly into a rage. What the hell? He's too arrogant. One day, when our Xianxia sect becomes powerful, I will definitely kick his balls until they explode. Fuck his mother, what's so arrogant about? He's just a half-step nascent soul cultivator. I can kill him with one slap. When Yuan Tairan led the group out of the teleportation array area and into the crowded city, a burly and barbaric youth from the Xianxia sect immediately said angrily, "First update. Sorry, the update is a little late. There will still be a third update today. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation." Chapter 309. The disciples of the Yuan Gate are all like this. They don't know what etiquette is. Even their outer disciples are like tortoises who dare to do whatever they want in the cultivation world, let alone a half-step nascent soul cultivator like him. Let's just bear with it. After all, they are the strongest sect in the Eastern continent, another disciple said. Yuan Tairan and the four elders didn't say anything as they listened to the disciples' discussion. At the same time, several disciples of the Yuan Gate were also staring at Chen Hao, who was walking at the back and being held by two great beauties. Their mocking gazes turned into naked jealousy. Both Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were rare beauties, and they were obviously very young. However, they had both reached the nascent soul stage, especially Helian Wuzi, who was at the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Being able to have one of these Dao companions was already a blessing accumulated from 8 lifetimes. However, Chen Hao was actually hugging both of them at the same time and at the same place. In particular, although Chen Hao didn't have any intimate contact with the beautiful Chen Shui in the city in the sky, their relationship was definitely not simple in these people's hearts. Fuck, this brat's luck with women is too damn good. That disciple's gaze flickered as he stared at the graceful backs of the two women. He was filled with jealousy. Senior brother, that fellow is Chen Hao, whose name has shaken the cultivation world. Who else could it be other than him? Damn it, I've long received news that 2 female super geniuses have appeared in the star-picking sect. One is Helian Wuzi, and the other is Tantai Lian. Moreover, they both came from the same empire as this brat and entered the cultivation world from the 100 empire ranking. I didn't expect that they were both beauties and had an affair with this brat. Damn it. However, this brat won't have a good time for long. That disciple said sinisterly. Others didn't know what Chu Qingtian wanted to do to Chen Hao, but he knew. Not to mention Chu Qingtian's feelings for Chen Shui. Just the cultivation talent that Chen Hao had displayed was something that the arrogant and domineering Chu Qingtian wouldn't let go of. Such a person would never allow anyone to steal his luck and limelight. Outside the entrance of the Chamber of Commerce, there were countless cultivators gathered. Very few of them were here to investigate the news of the various sects, while most of them were here to admire the genius disciples of the various sections. Everyone knew that they would be able to see the lineup of the participating sects at first glance. To be able to witness the super geniuses of the younger generation was something that many cultivators yearned for. After the people from the star-picking sect came out, the crowd burst into discussion and became the focus of everyone's attention. The star-picking sect had never received this kind of treatment before. After all, they were only a third-rank sect. Compared to the thousands of other sects, they were not eye-catching at all. Even their super genius disciples did not receive much attention. But today was different. This was because the star-seizing sect had produced a monstrous genius who shocked the entire world of cultivation, Chen Hao. At the same time, there were also rumors that 2 more exceptional geniuses had appeared. Moreover, they were female disciples. This was especially true for Helian Wuzi, who had just become the champion of the 100 Empire ranking. She was originally just the champion of the 100 Empire ranking. Naturally, not many people paid attention to her. However, not only was she the champion, she was also a stunning beauty. Even so, there were not many people who paid attention to her. Most importantly, a disciple who had just entered the world of cultivation from the 100 Empire ranking had actually obtained the right to participate in the intersect competition in less than a year. This was too shocking. That was the nascent soul stage. Furthermore, the rumors said that Helian Wuzi was still in the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Who could compare to such a speed of advancement? Even Xia Yu's advancement speed was much slower than hers. That's Chen Hao, right? What a beautiful woman. Isn't this too awesome? Hugging left and right. Arrogant, truly arrogant. Someone who dares to be so high profile must be very powerful. No wonder he was able to suppress Chu Qingtian among the many exceptional geniuses in the city in the sky and obtain the 6th place in the potential test. However, his aura doesn't seem to be very powerful. TSK, you don't know this, do you? I heard that countless people wanted to kill him in the city in the sky. But who saw him in the end? Everyone who saw him die. His concealment skills are definitely superb. Furthermore, he was only in the golden core stage then. Now he's already in the nascent soul stage. I really don't know how powerful he is now. He's at least comparable to the late-stage nascent soul stage super geniuses of the 9th rank sects. He killed several exceptional geniuses of the 9th rank sects of the South Sea Archipelago. 2 exceptional beauties. What more could a man ask for if he could have one of them? Damn it, they can't be compared. The discussions in the crowd were unbridled. It was difficult for the people of the Xianxia sect to not hear them. Furthermore, they were all talking about Chen Hao, Helian Wuxi, and Tantai Lian. Even though Chen Hao had long known that he was a little powerful in the world of cultivation, he didn't expect the commotion to be so great. Chen Hao was a little conflicted. One had to know that although this fellow was filled with arrogance and unruliness, it was still in his bones. He was not the crazy Li Yuan from his previous life. He, who had fused with his soul, had never liked arrogant and domineering fellows who had arrogance written all over their faces. Of course, he disdained to do so. But now, because of his special situation, it seemed that he was indeed a little too high profile, but there was no other way. Since there was no other way, why should he care? Therefore, other than the slight awkwardness in the beginning, Chen Hao's expression was calm after a while. He enjoyed the envious discussions of the crowd, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, filled with an indescribable evil charm. On the other hand, Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian's cheeks were burning. They couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Especially after noticing Chen Hao's expression, the 2 girls couldn't help but scorn him and pinch him viciously. Yuan Tairan led the group and walked very quickly. Although they couldn't fly under the restriction of the flight prohibition order, it was as if the ground had shrunk. In just a few minutes, they arrived at the largest palace complex in the core of Dongxian City. Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian only heaved a sigh of relief when they stepped into the courtyard that had been arranged for them. Haha. To everyone's surprise, after stepping into the courtyard, Yuan Tairan directly released a powerful restriction to seal off the aura of the entire courtyard. He laughed loudly and looked at Chen Hao and the 2 girls with a trace of admiration. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect that our Xianxia sect could cause such a big commotion. Chen Hao, Xiaowu, Xiaolian, this is all thanks to you. Not bad, not bad. I'm afraid that even the 8th rank sects can't compare to us. Ha. Keep it up, keep it up. We have to be so high profile. Let them be envious. Ha. Long Yukong's brows were deeply furrowed. He was obviously very unhappy with the sect leader's attitude. But now he had no choice but to accept it. Chen Hao's reputation was too great. The only thing he could rely on was to achieve a better result than Chen Hao in the intersect competition. He also knew that if there were no accidents, Chen Hao would completely surpass him in the near future. Without a doubt, this was his only chance to overshadow Chen Hao. Although he couldn't accept it, he had to accept it. This kind of person wasn't someone he could compete with. Moreover, he could vaguely feel that someone like Chen Hao would not be limited to the small Xianxia sect. Therefore, although he was depressed, he wasn't so stupid as to think of making an enemy out of Chen Hao. Hearing the sect leader's words, Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian let go of Chen Hao's arm at the same time. Chen Hao, on the other hand, smiled awkwardly and said, "Sect leader, what are the arrangements for the exchange competition? My cultivation base hasn't stabilized yet. If there's nothing else for now, I'll go cultivate. The selection test will officially begin the day after tomorrow at noon. When it's our Xianxia sect's turn, it'll probably be 3 or 4 days later. Don't worry and go cultivate. I'll call you when the time comes. Chen Hao, don't give yourself too much pressure. Although it concerns our Xianxia sect's vital interests, we can't eat until we're fat. At most, we'll be able to ascend to a 5th rank sect. After all, the results of the intersect competition are only an indicator of a sect's ranking. Our foundation is still lacking after all. It's not something that can be improved in a short time. Moreover, you're only at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Your cultivation base is a little low. This time, you'll have to rely on Yukong to aim for the highest ranking. Understood? Then I'll go cultivate first. Wait a moment. Someone will come to count the participating disciples later. You can choose your rooms first. I'll call someone over," said the Grand Elder. After he finished speaking, he walked out directly. A moment later, an old man with a powerful aura and the Grand Elder arrived at the courtyard where the Xianxia sect was located. The symbol on the old man's chest was the Ling Tian sect. The Eastern Continent intersect competition was organized by the 10 great 9th rank sections. This old man was the Ling Tian sect's inner court elder. His aura was not much weaker than Yuan Tyrant's. It was obvious that he was also a half-step to the creation stage expert. The great elder was respectful and reverent in front of him, and he seemed to be flattered by this favor. After all, the Grand Elder was only at the peak of the mastery stage of the embodiment stage. The gap was not small. Although they were both inner court elders, the Ling Tian sect was a high and mighty grade 9 sect. Even a grade 8 sect could not compare to it, let alone him. The Grand Elder did not expect that the other party would not put on airs at all and would talk and laugh with him. However, the Grand Elder soon realized that the other party's problem had shifted to Chen Hao. Only then did the Grand Elder realize that the other party had taken a liking to Chen Hao. When he thought about how the Ling Tian sect had protected Chen Hao because of Fan Fong, he was even more certain. However, he was not worried that the other party would poach Chen Hao away. The concept of sex in the cultivation world was very strong. Taking a liking to someone was one thing, but it was just forming good karma. This was the power of a super sect. The 10 great sects were also 10 factions. The low-grade sects also had their own grade 9 sects that they supported. However, a weak force like a grade 3 sect was not qualified to take sides. Second update. Third update tonight. Chapter 310. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, Brother Yuan, it's been a while. Your star-picking sect has been blessed with good fortune for the past 2 years. This year, there's a chance for you to break through 2 levels. Congratulations! The Ling Tian sect's elder said enthusiastically without waiting for Yuan Tai Ran to speak after entering the courtyard. Thank you for your kind words, Brother Xia. Yuan Tai Ran replied with a fist salute. Xia? Is he Yu Yu's elder? Chen Hao thought to himself when he heard how Yuan Tai Ran addressed him. The Ling Tian sect's inner court elder was indeed a direct descendant of the Ling Tian sect. The third inner court elder was the brother of the Ling Tian sect's sect leader. He was Xia Lanlin's grandfather, Xia Lingyun. Xia Lingyun's eyes glowed as he slowly scanned the 31 disciples of the star-picking sect. At this moment, Chen Hao and the others all felt a faint pressure. When his gaze swept over Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien, he paused for a moment. He was secretly surprised. The life aura of the two naturally couldn't escape his senses, especially Helian Wuzi. To have such a cultivation at such a young age was definitely very, very shocking. In the end, Xia Lingyun's gaze stopped on Chen Hao. Little guy, you're Chen Hao, aren't you? Xia Lingyun stroked his shiny black beard with a benevolent smile on his face. He stared at Chen Hao and asked all of a sudden. That's me. Chen Hao saluted with a fist salute. Although he was slightly surprised, he remained calm. Not bad. You're indeed a dragon among men. Old man, you're Lanlin's grandfather. Thank you for saving Lanlan and Yu Fei's lives twice. You're too kind, senior. It's nothing. Moreover, Brother Duan has given me a reward. Chen Hao said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. No matter how high the reward is, it can't be compared to the lives of my granddaughter and grandson-in-law, can it? This is our Ling Tian sect's VIP token. Yours is different from the others. It's very special. You can't reject it, huh? Xia Lingyun said as he stared at Chen Hao meaningfully. As he spoke, he sent out a burst of energy and a silver token appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. Sensing the faint aura on the token, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of excitement. This aura was very weak. Even Yuan Tai Ran, who was not far away, was confused by the other powerful aura on the token. He did not notice, or rather, did not care, that insignificant aura. Brother Xia, you're too polite, Yuan Tai Ran said, slightly surprised. Although the VIP token of the Ling Tian sect was not a spirit weapon nor was there anything profound about it, it was still something that many cultivators in the eastern continent dreamed of having. With it, there would be no obstruction in the area under the jurisdiction of the Ling Tian sect. Moreover, all the chambers of commerce and forces under the protection of the Ling Tian sect in the eastern continent could enjoy VIP treatment. This was undoubtedly very convenient for cultivators who were training in the cultivation world. Chen Hao, aren't you going to thank Elder Xia? Thank you, Senior Xia. Chen Hao took the token and cupped his fists to express his gratitude. This is what you deserve. Perform well in the intersect competition. Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and the others can be said to be a gathering of powerhouses. The competition is very, very intense. Big sects have their own views. Brother Yuan, your star-picking sect has a total of 31 people. Based on the number of people, you're considered average even among 5th grade sections. However, if you want to be promoted to a 5th grade sect, it'll depend on their performance. Here are 31 tokens. Let them refine it with their blood, input the information, and wear it on their bodies. Old man, I'll take my leave first. All right. Thank you, Brother Xia. Yuan Tairan was secretly surprised as he watched Xia Lingyun disappear in front of him. He did not understand what Xia Lingyun meant. Did Xia Lingyun think that Chen Hao could compete with Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and the other top geniuses who had stepped into the incarnation stage? Even if he could, it was because of his potential and not his strength. After all, Chen Hao had just stepped into the nascent soul stage and had yet to stabilize his cultivation base. What was even more strange was Xia Lingyun's words about big sects having their own views. It was even more baffling. What did this have to do with Chen Hao? Sectarian views? Fuck your fucking sectarian views. After stepping into the cultivation room, Chen Hao's face that was as calm as water suddenly flashed with a hint of coldness without any warning as he scolded angrily. He was not scolding Xia Lingyun. Chen Hao could feel that Xia Lingyun's gaze was filled with admiration and sincere gratitude when he looked at him. Otherwise, with his arrogant character, why would he be so courteous to Xia Lingyun who was a junior? Others might not understand Xia Lingyun's words, but Chen Hao could. Without a doubt, he was clearly telling Chen Hao that even with Chen Hao's current reputation in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world, he could not make the Ling Tian sect accept his relationship with Xia Yuyu. The biggest obstacle would be Chu Qingtian and Wu Ruochen. When he recalled Xia Lingfeng, the sect leader of the Ling Tian sect, and Xia Yu's father, Xia Yutong, especially Xia Yutong's face, Chen Hao could not suppress his anger. He could not do anything to them, but he wanted to use his own strength to slap them back. Since they looked down on others, then he would become an existence that they could only look up to. So what if they were a grade 9 sect? Yuyu belongs to me, Chen Hao. Nobody can stop me. Nobody can have her. If you push me too far, I'll cook the rice with you and give birth to my grandson. Cough cough. When he thought of the innocent and flawless Xia Yuyu, her beautiful figure, clear and innocent eyes, her angel-like pure, cute and holy face, and her unrestrained and pure personality, Chen Hao, who was boiling with anger, instantly calmed down and looked at the VIP token that Xia Lingyun gave him. With Chen Hao's character, he would never accept any gift related to the Ling Tian sect. However, due to the uniqueness of this token, he had no choice but to accept it temporarily. This was because there was a trace of Xia Yuyu's aura on the token. It was the aura of the 9 revolution heaven and earth yin-yang form. Such a low-level aura was the most familiar aura to both Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu. How could Chen Hao forget it? However, Chen Hao did not understand why Yuyu left her aura on the token. Was it just to let him accept the VIP token? Obviously, it was not that simple. Both of them had been cultivating in the ruin for more than a year and had always been in a state of telepathy. They had a deep understanding of each other's character, so how could Xia Yuyu not know? However, the token was not a communication talisman, nor was it a jade slip. What kind of mystery could it have? Chen Hao urged his mind slightly. Although he could not use his true origin, it was very easy for him to release such an aura that was very low level to him. Hiss. What Chen Hao did not expect was that as soon as his aura came into contact with the token, A strange fluctuation suddenly emitted from the token. It was like a wisp of green smoke drifting out, causing Chen Hao to widen his eyes in surprise. How, a devastatingly beautiful figure, both real and illusory, suddenly appeared in front of Chen Hao. A voice that was as pleasant as the sound of nature, carrying a trace of surprise and excitement, shouted out from the illusory figure. How? Only Yu Yu would address Chen Hao as such. Only Yu Yu, who was older than Chen Hao and called herself Big Sister, would call him by such a nickname that Chen Hao could not bear. Why are you in a daze? This is Yu Yu's incarnation. After a cultivator stepped into the incarnation stage, they could rely on a wisp of true origin that contained their mind to condense an external incarnation that was connected to the main body. The farther away the external incarnation was, the weaker it would be. If it was by their side, they could rely on powerful magical treasures to condense an incarnation and increase their battle strength by several times. This was because the main body and the incarnation were completely connected. However, although Xia Yu was also living in this palace, she was in the deepest part of the palace that only 9th-rank sects had the qualifications to live in. They were separated by at least 10 li. To be able to use a wisp of true origin to condense an incarnation that was both real and illusory was already very impressive. After entering the cultivation world, although they had coincidentally met twice and talked once, it was under the condition that they had not recognized each other. The third time they met, although Xia Yu was only an incarnation, the two of them were alone. At this moment, Xia Yu was the real Xia Yu. In front of Chen Hao, there was not the slightest change due to time or distance, nor was there any barrier. Hearing the familiar voice, Chen Hao's heart that was as firm as a boulder was almost instantly moved by Xia Yu. The corner of his mouth naturally revealed a smile as he said, "This incarnation of yours is really ugly. I can't even see it clearly, so hateful." For Yu Yu to be able to condense an incarnation from so far away is already very impressive. How, I heard from Sister Lon Lon that you have made many good friends, and they are all very beautiful. Yu Yu, don't listen to her nonsense. How are there many? One is called Tantai Lian, one is called Chen Shui, one is called Helian Wuzi, and there are many others that Sister Lon Lon did not mention. Yu Yu knows all of them. Tantai Lian obtained the Phoenix inheritance with you, Chen Shui trained with you, and Sister Lon Lon said that she is very powerful. Helian Wuzi has only recently entered the cultivation world and is from your kingdom. She is also very powerful, cough. Chen Hao awkwardly coughed twice. He did not expect Xia Yu to know his situation like the back of her hand. It must be that girl Xia Lon Lon who was gossiping and maliciously making up stories to increase the number. Of course, it must also be because Xia Yu had been collecting information about him all along. However, Chen Hao was clear that Xia Lon Lon was thinking for Yu Yu. But what would Chen Hao say? This was a very complicated question. It was a question that made Chen Hao's head hurt and unable to answer. Explain? This was the truth, what's the point of explaining? As for concealing, lying, and temporarily placating, Chen Hao disdained to do it. How, you can't treat them better than Yu, okay? Just when Chen Hao's head was about to explode and he did not know what to say, the pure and cute Xia Yu's illusory figure gently pulled Chen Hao's arm. It was just an action, and she did not really pull him, as she said in a seemingly pitiful manner. Good. You are still the best. Chen Hao was a little emotional as he agreed. This was the absolute truth. Even Chen Hao did not expect Xia Yu to be so reasonable and considerate. Third update. Thank you for your tips and votes. Thank you very much. Before the 17th of next month, Dark Mountain will definitely pay off its debt and crazily work for a month. Also, recommend the new book of the Southern Dynasty's Great God Chen, Human God Introduction. A scholar meets a fox immortal, living off a woman with meat. Please try something new. Fighting for incense in the mortal world, bestowing the seal to become a god, writing the passage of time. This world originally did not have a god, but as more people worshipped, there was a god. From a human to a god, walking with a sword. This book is even more wonderful than Crossing Strange Stories. Welcome everyone to come and support. Thank you. Chapter 311. I Can't Treat Them Better Than You, and I Have to Treat You the Best were two completely different concepts, not to mention something like, I can't live without her. How could Chen Hao not be moved? The two chatted for a while more before Xia Yuyu's incarnation exhausted her mind and energy and disappeared in front of Chen Hao. Although Xia Yuyu was looking forward to Chen Hao's performance in the intersect competition, she didn't mention anything about it. She didn't want to give Chen Hao any pressure. Although she knew from Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei that Chen Hao's battle prowess was unfathomable and exceeded his realm by many times, Chen Hao had only just stepped into the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, she could sense that Chen Hao's aura had yet to stabilize. It was impossible for him to reach the height that her grandfather had mentioned. Not to mention Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing, who had already stepped into the incarnation realm. Even some half-step incarnation realm experts weren't something that Chen Hao could contend against. Naive and pure didn't mean that she was stupid. On the contrary, Xia Yuyu was extremely intelligent. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to have such a cultivation at such a young age. She already had her own plans. Chen Hao stared at the dissipating Xia Yuyu and took a deep breath. He pondered, there are only 10 days until the official competition. With my current speed, I'm obviously still a little lacking. I have to think of a way to increase my speed. I wonder if the outline of the Great Tao is useful? Chen Hao's mind lit up as he thought of the outline of the Great Tao. Previously, in the Grand Elder's Cave, although Chen Hao didn't have any comprehension of the mysterious outline of the Great Tao, just by reciting it over and over again, he felt a mysterious aura. Although it was only a trace, it allowed Chen Hao, who had already reached his limit, to devour a large amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth, which made the Grand Elder a little surprised. More importantly, at that time, Chen Hao clearly felt that his body had become stronger. Let's try it first. Thinking of this, Chen Hao waved the sword in his mind and cut off all distracting thoughts. His mind was immersed in cultivation. He first urged the star formula to start refining the secret longevity formula. When this kind of refining could be done on its own without the urging of Chen Hao's mind, a wisp of Chen Hao's mind began to recite the outline of the Great Tao. Mysterious and profound words floated in Chen Hao's mind. Gradually, his mind entered the state of thoughtless tranquility. The chanting voice in his mind sounded again and again, from weak to strong. An hour later, Chen Hao's recitation resounded in Chen Hao's mind like the evening drum and morning bell. At this moment, a mysterious aura appeared once again. On the other hand, Chen Hao forgot the time and everything once more. He seemed to have entered a dazed and ignorant state, like a baby that was gradually gaining intelligence in his mother's womb. This. In his dantian, it used to take a few minutes to refine a wisp of true essence, but now the refining speed was getting faster and faster. Compared to the vast and boundless secret longevity formula's true essence, the tiny wisp of star essence was like an ant to an elephant. But this ant's appetite, under this mysterious aura, became extremely terrifying. Not only was the devouring speed astonishing, the growth speed was equally astonishing. Unfortunately, Chen Hao, who was immersed in the state of oblivion, could not sense the changes in his dantian. Otherwise, he would have been shocked to death. This speed was tens of times faster than his original refining speed, almost 100 times faster. Who would have thought that the number of qualified genius disciples this time would reach over 30,000? This is absolutely unprecedented. This is a sign that a great era is coming. On the afternoon of the third day since the star-picking sect arrived at Dongxian City, countless cultivators with powerful auras had gathered in the center of the city, on a huge training field with a radius of 50 miles. Hundreds of participating disciples from the various sects were divided into countless areas according to their sect's grade. They were scattered all around the training field. For mortals, it was impossible to see the entire training field with their naked eyes. However, for cultivators of the nascent soul stage and above, it was no problem at all. What no one expected was that the number of qualified disciples for this year's intersect competition far exceeded that of previous years. It had more than doubled in strength. This was simply inconceivable. Other than the 30,000 participating disciples, countless cultivators had gathered around the training field to watch. In the center of the training field, 10 semicircular objects stood side by side. The highest point was 100 feet tall and only a few dozen centimeters thick, like a windshield. The surface was covered with mysterious runes, and in the center of the runes were 100 purple crystals evenly distributed from the lowest to the highest. Each crystal was the size of a human head and could be seen from both sides. These are the vital energy testing lamps. In previous years, only 60 of them were lit to qualify for the official competition. This year, it was just announced yesterday that because of the unprecedented number of participants, the number has been raised to 70. In the area where the star-picking sect was, the Grand Elder pointed at the semicircular object in the center of the training field and spoke to the disciples behind him. Other than Xianxia, all 30 disciples were present. 70. Grand Elder, doesn't that mean we need the strength of the peak of the intermediate stage of the nascent soul stage? One of the disciples frowned. Yes. There's nothing we can do about it. Everyone just has to try their best. The results of the test are useful as well. We mustn't give up just because we can't reach 70. We can't let go of any hope. This time, the number of participants has skyrocketed mainly in the first grade and second grade sections. The number of third grade sects and above did not increase much. The 31 of us are comparable to a fifth grade sect. While the Grand Elder was explaining to everyone, the disciples of the Origin Gate, Sky Sword Sect, Ling Tian Sect, and countless other sects were watching the star-picking sect from afar with various thoughts. Most of their gazes were locked on Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian. One had to admit that their age, appearance, and cultivation base were comparable to the top geniuses of the 9th grade sects, especially Helian Wuxi. It could be said that the small 3rd grade sect, the star-picking sect, had shaken the cultivation world the most in the past 2 years. However, what surprised these people was that Xianxia, whose name shook the cultivation world, was not among them. Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and the others from the Ling Tian sect were also wondering why Xianxia was not here. However, Xia Yu was not surprised at all. She knew that Xianxia had not stabilized his cultivation base yet. Naturally, he was seizing the time to cultivate. There were also the disciples of the Flying Sword sect. Xianxia had killed the number 1 genius disciple of the Flying Sword sect, Fan Fong. It was a big event that shook the cultivation world. The Flying Sword sect had lost all face. How could they not hate the star-picking sect? Naturally, they had to pay attention to them. Of course, Lung Yihan was also paying attention to the star-picking sect. The time has come. The selection test has officially begun. Due to the skyrocketing number of participants this year, all sects please do not delay and begin the test immediately. The 10 direction test lamps will be conducted at the same time. 10 sects will be tested according to the order of their names. Begin now. First grade sects, Lockhart Valley, Great Void Sect, Jade Drop Palace. An old man who was in charge of hosting the test on the rostrum announced in a majestic and forceful voice. Immediately, the 10 first-grade sects that were called appeared in front of the corresponding test lamps under the lead of their elders. When the disciples began their test, the old man in charge pointed out another 10 first-grade sects to prepare. Everyone had 2 chances to get the best result out of the 2 tests. If they could not light up 70 lamps, they would be eliminated. During the test, after activating the token that was issued, the disciple's sect and name would be displayed at the top of the test lamp. Low-grade sects were not only few in number, but their cultivation base was also weak. On average, only 1 out of 100 disciples would appear. Many of them could light up 69 lamps, losing by only 1 lamp. There were close to 200 first-grade sects, and each of them would take at least 2 minutes to complete the test. There was no other way. Everyone had to raise their strength to the peak before they dared to attack. Nobody dared to waste 2 chances. When the close to 200 first-grade sects finished their test, 6 hours had already passed. The test for the day had also ended. The one with the best result actually lit up 80 lamps, which caused quite a stir. 80 lamps meant that he was at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm. And that disciple was only at the late-stage nascent soul realm. The next afternoon, when the second-grade sects were halfway through their test, the great elders specially went back to call Chen Hao. When he returned to the martial arts arena, the great elder's expression was filled with intense surprise and shock. All the disciples of the Zhaixing sect, except for Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian, looked at Chen Hao in disbelief. It was as if they were looking at a monster. Middle-stage nascent soul realm. How was this possible? They all knew that Chen Hao's inner force cultivation technique was too low-level. It was already the limit for him to stabilize his cultivation base. How could he reach the mid-stage nascent soul realm? But the truth was right in front of them. The moment Chen Hao appeared with an indifferent expression, countless gazes locked onto him from afar. That's Chen Hao. He actually reached the mid-stage nascent soul realm. I wonder how much his combat strength has increased? When he was at the late-stage golden core realm, he already killed a nascent soul realm genius. Fuck, he's already at the mid-stage nascent soul realm? Some of the 8th grade and 9th grade sects' super genius disciples who had seen Chen Hao began to discuss. How, a heavenly voice was the first to reach Chen Hao's ears. Brother Chen. Duan Yufei's voice followed. Chen Hao looked into the distance. Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and Xia Yuyu were sitting together, staring at him from afar. Chen Hao smiled slightly. His eyes met Xia Yu's for a moment before they both looked away. How, you've actually reached the mid-stage nascent soul realm? Xia Yuyu's expression did not change. Her expression did not change, but her excited voice resounded in Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao, you're finally here. I heard that you were sharpening your spear at the last minute. I didn't want to disturb you. At the same time, what made Chen Hao's head hurt was that Leng Yihan's voice also sounded. And he seemed to be very excited. First update. I'm not in a good state. I'm sorry for the late update. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 312. Chen Hao shuddered and almost had goosebumps. Especially when he thought about the promise he still owed Leng Yihan, Chen Hao was a little scared. If this guy asked to do that with him, he would definitely not agree, but he would still be disgusted to death. But Chen Hao could not get angry. After all, this was only what Chen Hao felt. Leng Yihan was excited, but he did not show that he wanted to develop that kind of relationship with him, right? After Chen Hao replied to Leng Yihan indifferently, he was multitasking. He chatted with Yuyu and replied to Yuan Tairen, who was so excited that his face was red. He also had to deal with the greetings of the sect disciples and chat with Xiao Wu and Xiaolian. When he arrived, Chen Hao had already sat between Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian, who looked like enemies but were sitting next to each other. He was already a master, so why would he care about this little intimacy? Not to mention, Chen Hao was in a good mood now. In any case, Chen Hao did not expect that the primary outline of the Great Tao would contain such a magical effect. In less than half a day, he had completed the tempering of the true essence by merely reciting the primary outline of the Great Tao without comprehending the slightest bit of it. He had tempered all the longevity art true essence in his Dantian into the stellar art true essence. He had finished changing his cultivation method. After completing the tempering, Chen Hao naturally woke up. When he found that his vital essence had not reached the full state of his realm, he once again experienced the mystery of the primary outline of the Great Tao. He took out 2 mid-grade primordial crystal stones and recited the primary outline of the Great Tao while absorbing the energy of the primordial crystal stones, refining the pure energy of heaven and earth into his own vital essence. What shocked Chen Hao the most was that an ordinary early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator would need 2 to 4 hours to completely absorb these 2 mid-grade primal crystal stones, but in less than a few minutes, they were completely absorbed. This increased the refining speed by dozens of times, and Chen Hao's true essence reserves in his Dantian had reached the peak of the early-stage nascent soul realm. Taking advantage of the time he still had, Chen Hao directly filled the bathtub with spirit spring water. Naked, he sat cross-legged in the spirit spring water, immersing himself in a state of cultivation. However, this time, he did not practice any unique skill. He chanted the general principles of the great Tao over and over again. In fact, Chen Hao did not even try to comprehend it. Over this period of time, Chen Hao had come to understand that the general outline of the great Tao was too profound for him. It wasn't that his perception was lacking, but rather that his cultivation level was not high enough. It was as if he was separated by several mountains. He could recognize every word and understand every sentence, but he couldn't recognize the words. Similarly, Chen Hao did not have any thoughts about breaking through to the early stage nascent soul realm. It was definitely not something that could be done in a short period of time. Therefore, this time, he truly had no desires. Perhaps it was this kind of mentality that allowed Chen Hao to miraculously and inconceivably advance to the middle stage nascent soul realm. Epiphany. Yes, epiphany. As he recited it over and over again, Chen Hao once again encountered an epiphany that all cultivators dreamed of and that many cultivators would never encounter in their entire lives. Not only was the large pool of spirit spring water completely absorbed, even the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity of the palace was sucked dry. When the great elder rushed back to call Chen Hao, it was precisely when Chen Hao broke through from the early stage nascent soul realm to the middle stage, and also when the epiphany had just ended. Chen Hao did not hide it. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why he advanced so quickly. Even if he was a monster, it was impossible to directly advance from the early stage nascent soul realm to the middle stage nascent soul realm in 2 or 3 days. This was absolutely impossible. Of course, in reality, Chen Hao did not need to explain. However, if he did not explain, what would happen if everyone saw him as a monster? The people of the star-picking sect were naturally envious, jealous, and hateful. Long Yakong was even more defeated. Meeting such a monster, how could he not be convinced? Especially in the past 2 days, he had deeply felt how great Chen Hao's reputation was in the cultivation world. As for Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian, the 3 of them were pleasantly surprised for Chen Hao. However, only Xia Yu did not have any scruples and intimately praised Chen Hao. After an hour, it was finally the 3rd-rank sect's turn to take the test. In the 2nd-rank sect, the passing rate was several times higher than in the 1st-rank sect. Most sects could have at least 1 person pass, and there were also 2, but it was not many. However, after the 3rd-rank sect began, it was obvious that the passing rate had increased by a large margin. Every sect had more than 10 or 20 people participating in the test, and there were basically 3 or 4 who passed, with the highest passing rate reaching 7. The highest result was also continuously set new records. A half-step incarnation realm disciple lit up 86 stones. This result was definitely high. After all, an early incarnation realm disciple could only light up around 90 stones. Moreover, the higher one went, the harder it was. Even if it was just 1 more stone, one's strength would have to be significantly higher. In the 8th batch, which was close to the end of the 3rd-rank sect's test, the presiding elder finally pointed to the peak existence of the 3rd-rank sect, the star-picking sect. Voila! Without any warning, the entire martial arts arena burst into a buzz of discussion. Although everyone's voice was very soft, there were many people. Even the 8th and 9th rank sects were no exception. This was definitely an unprecedented situation since the start of the test. It's finally the star-picking sect. I wonder how many stones that Chen Hao can light up? His aura is already at the mid-nascent soul realm. It's hard to say. This kind of person is not someone we can estimate. However, no matter how awesome he is, he can't exceed 90 stones. Aren't you talking nonsense? 90 stones can only be achieved at the early incarnation realm. Although this Chen Hao is strong, it's impossible for him to have the attack power of the incarnation realm at the mid-nascent soul realm. I guess 88 stones is slightly better than a half-step incarnation realm disciple. I want to see how many stones this kid can light up. Bullshit, the top inner disciple of the Eastern continent reached the mid-nascent soul realm in just half a year. I don't know how much the star-picking sect has spent to help him. Even if he can surpass his level, how much can he surpass? The floating mist sect's disciple, Gu He, looked at Chen Hao with disdain. Gu He, if you were at the early nascent soul realm and the floating mist sect paid a huge price, would you be able to advance from the early nascent soul realm to the mid-nascent soul realm in 2 days? Gu Xing, who usually didn't speak much, suddenly said after hearing Gu He's words. After seeing Gu He speechless, he continued, in the Sky City's potential test, he obtained 6th place with the cultivation of the late Golden Core realm and killed the top genius of the Southern Sea Islands 9th rank sect. It's definitely not luck. Even if I don't say it, you should know how many people wanted to kill him in the Sky City, including you. But he's still fine. Don't underestimate him. If there are no accidents, he can light up 90 stones, or even more. How is that possible? Even if it's me. How can you compare to him? I don't believe it. Then just watch. Gu Xing didn't say anything else. If Gu He wasn't his cousin, he wouldn't even give a damn. Similar discussions broke out in countless sections. They all revolved around Chen Hao, and occasionally, it would turn to Helian Wuxi and Tantilian. After all, although the two of them didn't have any achievements in the cultivation world, their age, cultivation level and appearance were dazzling, especially since they were close to Chen Hao. The Ling Tian sect's disciples were also in high spirits as they waited for Chen Hao's performance. Especially Xia Yuyu, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lanlan were looking forward to it. Leng Yihan was also looking forward to it and feeling nervous. Hiss hiss hiss. Under the lead of the Grand Elder, the star-picking sect's disciples flew to the center of the training field. There were a total of 31 people. Just this lineup alone was the sect with the most disciples since the beginning of the assessment. Chen Hao, I've already told them that no matter what, they have to give it their all in this assessment and display their strongest attack. Even if they're disqualified, their results will still be recorded in the sect's records. Don't hold back. Although the sect leader didn't tell you, he has the highest hopes for you. The Grand Elder stared at Chen Hao with a fervent gaze as he said in a low voice, 4th Elder and 7th Elder have been investigating the participating disciples for the past 2 days. They'll tell you about it when the time comes. Don't worry, Grand Elder. I know what to do. Chen Hao smiled lightly as his eyes shone with confidence. Pull back? There was no need for that. This was only a test of attack power. Although it could roughly measure one's combat strength, that was only for ordinary disciples. Sword Dao realm, attribute, and so on couldn't be reflected here. It didn't matter even if he used the platinum sky-splitting slash. He only wanted to test his attack power. He had 100 ways to hide his true trump card. After the last disciple of the 3rd rank sect finished his assessment, Long Yukong, who was half a step away from sky-splitting slash, was the first to walk out. His aura instantly soared to the limit. With a loud roar, he used his strongest technique and slashed out. 86. Chen Hao's powerful soul perception sensed Long Yukong's aura. Before the latter's attack even hit the lamp, he said with absolute certainty in his mind. Chen Hao only needed to look at a few dozen people to make such a clear judgment. Even the Grand Elder didn't have this ability. Boom. After a loud bang, the purple crystals lit up from the bottom to the top. At first, the speed was fast, but it gradually slowed down. Finally, when the 86th crystal lit up, it stopped. Good job, Yukong. The Grand Elder praised. Do you want to try? That's my limit. Long Yukong smiled proudly. Although he didn't break the previous record, he still exceeded the standard of half a step away from sky-splitting slash by 85 crystals. Following that, the other disciples used their strongest attacks. However, only 6 of the 27 disciples, including Long Yukong, passed the test and advanced to the official competition. However, 6th place was already a very good result for a 3rd-grade sect. The Grand Elder had a smile on his face. Second update. That's it for today. Don't wait. Next month, Dark Mountain will go all out. Thank you for your votes and tips. Thank you. Chapter 313. I'll go first. Yi Feishue stood at the very back with Chen Hao, Helian Wuxi and Tantilian. After she finished speaking, she walked to the side of the test lamp. Yi Feishui used to be ranked 6th among the core disciples, but she was now at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, second only to Long Yukong. Sensing the powerful aura from Yi Feishui, the smile on Great Elder's face widened. The result was 81 crystals, exceeding the peak of the late nascent soul stage. She became the 7th person in the star-picking sect to pass the test and was temporarily ranked 2nd. The moment Tantai Lian appeared, a blue flame rose from her graceful figure. She was only at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. If she wanted to light up 70 crystals, which only the peak of the middle golden core stage could do, she had to show her true strength. Moreover, she had to do her best for the sect's results. When she was 100 feet away, Tantai Lian, who was surrounded by flames, suddenly sped up. She used the 7 stars footwork technique and held the 7 stars sword finger. In an instant, 6 shadows seemed to appear, faintly echoing Tantai Lian. When she was close to the test tower, Tantai Lian's blue crystal finger violently pointed. Bang! She's so strong. Amazing! As expected of the Phoenix inheritance and the 7 stars unique skill. I wonder how many crystals she can light up? When Tantai Lian made her move, the crowd burst into exclamations. It was no secret in the cultivation world that Tantai Lian and Chen Hao had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. Similarly, ever since Chen Hao came out of the 7 stars cave heaven and revealed the 7 stars sword finger when he killed Fan Fong, it had also spread. Not bad. In these few months, Xiaoyan's strength has improved again. 80 crystals. Xiaowu, how many can you light up? When the purple crystal stone continued to shine upwards and didn't stop, Chen Hao whispered to Helian Wuzi beside him. Higher than her. Helian Wuzi said confidently, looking at Xiaoyan who was as cold as the moon. Xiaowu, you two are like enemies. Aren't you tired? It's just a small misunderstanding. We still have a lot of time to spend together in the future. You're good, she's good, I'm good, everyone's good, that's really good, long live harmony. Chen Hao said with a smile on his face that made Helian Wuzi feel strange. Just then, Tantai Lian's results came out. She was at 80. She was at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm, but she had reached the standard of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. It was quite shocking. Take care of yourself. I'm starting. Helian Wuzi glared at Chen Hao. She welcomed Helian Wuzi who had returned and walked out. Her speed wasn't fast, but with every step she took, the aura around her body would rise by a notch. Boundless true origin burned fiercely within her body. It's only 80 pills, what's so difficult about that? She has improved a lot, but I have improved even more. Helian Wuzi thought to herself as if she was fighting spirit. She raised the power of her whole body to the limit. Before the battle with Chen Hao last time, Helian Wuzi only had a high level of cultivation. She hadn't cultivated to a higher level of consummate skill. However, when Chen Hao went into seclusion and Yuan Tairan came back to train the disciples who were qualified to participate in the competition, he had already given her the top heaven-level consummate skill of the star-picking sect, the cloud-splitting sword technique. The cloud-splitting sword technique was a few levels higher than the basic consummate skill of the star-picking sect's outer disciples, the star-picking sect's consummate skill of the system. It was also the most suitable consummate skill of the star-picking sect for those between the late stage of the nascent soul realm and the late stage of the incarnation realm. Helian Wuzi had already cultivated it to the realm of great success. How much could her strength increase? She stabbed out with her sword. The cold moonlight sword, which was only a low-grade spiritual weapon, suddenly emitted a huge round moon. Even the sunlight couldn't hide its brilliance and light. It was as if it had broken through layers of dark clouds, blooming its brilliance. Streams of cold energy condensed and didn't dissipate. With a boom, it collided with the test lamp. 86 pills. It exceeded the half-step to the incarnation realm by 1 pill. It was the same result as Long Yukong. Both of them are very strong. When the crowd burst into discussion again, Xia Yuyu, who was far away, stared at Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian with her clear and beautiful eyes. Her delicate lips curled up slightly with a sweet smile as she thought to herself, There was no hostility. It wasn't easy to display strength that exceeded one's realm. This was far more difficult than possessing battle strength that exceeded one's realm. After all, this was a contest of pure attack power. Tantai Lian and Helian Wuzi had done it, and they had exceeded one's realm by a lot. It's finally Chen Hao's turn. Although the two women were surprising, there was no doubt that Chen Hao was the one that everyone was looking forward to the most. This had nothing to do with realm. Even killing Fan Fong was negligible. The most important thing was the city in the sky. Everyone was looking forward to seeing how Chen Hao, who had obtained the 6th place in the potential test with the strength of the late stage of the Golden Core realm, and who had killed several top geniuses of the South Sea Islands' 9th rank sects, would perform this time. Rumors were rumors after all. Although they were confirmed to be true, most people couldn't believe it until they saw Chen Hao's true strength. Even Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, Leng Yihan, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lanlan were all staring at Chen Hao and holding their breaths. Yuan Tai ran on the rostrum, the great elder standing in the team, and the 4th elder and the 7th elder who were checking on the other disciples in the martial arts practice field, were all full of anticipation. Naturally, the huge martial arts practice field, which was originally filled with discussion, fell into a strange silence. Clang! Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, Chen Hao didn't give people too much suspense. His handsome face was as calm as water. He took a step forward, drew his sword, attacked, and sheathed it in one breath. The speed was neither fast nor slow. It seemed like a casual and simple sword. In fact, it was indeed the most basic sword move, the thrust of the solitary sword technique. However, it was this simple sword move that made the eyes of some of the true experts shine with a hint of admiration. Because, at this moment, even they couldn't find any flaws in Chen Hao's body. Bang! The moment the 5 elements sword touched the test lamp, it suddenly shook violently. A majestic, terrifying, and incomparably fierce aura suddenly spread out at this moment, instantly sweeping thousands of feet away. Some of the disciples who were closer to Chen Hao opened their eyes wide in shock under this terrifying aura. The star-picking sect disciples closest to him, including the great elder, felt their hearts skip a beat. Then, their faces shone with intense joy. The huge semicircular test lamps, which looked like wind shields, lit up from the bottom to the top. 10, 20, 30, 70, 80. It was only at the 80th point that the speed began to slow down. However, with this momentum, everyone knew that Chen Hao's result would create a new high since the beginning of the test. As for how high it would be, it was not something they could judge. In a breath's time, the number rose to 90 amidst the gasps of the crowd. But it still didn't stop. Even though the lighting speed was getting slower and slower, how is this possible? How is this possible? When it reached 93 and didn't stop, Gu He was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. He clenched his fists tightly. Even Gu Xing, who had always been silent beside Gu He and had no psychological changes, had an extremely shocked look in his eyes. Similarly, Chu Qingtian and the rest, who had already planned to kill Chen Hao, were also dumbfounded. Chu Qingtian wanted to kill Chen Hao because he was worried that Chen Hao's potential would replace him as the top person in the Eastern continent and steal his glory and fortune. As for Qin Shui, she was a small matter. But he had never thought highly of Chen Hao. After all, with his current cultivation and strength, Chen Hao couldn't be compared to him at all. But now, 95. Oh my god, am I seeing things? Too awesome. Motherfucker, is he still human? Could it be that the test lamp is broken? Broken my ass. The test lamp is a spiritual treasure, not a spiritual weapon. What kind of monster is he? I have already gathered my strength to the maximum. I have combined my physical body and true origin. I have also used the platinum sky-splitting slash and the solitary sword technique. Not bad. Before the results were shown, Chen Hao already knew his result. 95. The power of a middle-stage avatar. This was indeed Chen Hao's maximum attack power. And Chen Hao was very satisfied. The test lamp was a dead object after all. Sword Dao attributes, willpower, and the laws of heaven and earth were all useless. Freak. When Chen Hao returned to Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's side, the two girls actually said to Chen Hao at the same time. But the two beautiful little faces obviously had a trace of excitement and joy. After saying that, they probably didn't expect the other party to have the same mentality as them. They looked at each other at the same time and laughed out. What are you talking about? This is called amazing. Seeing the two of them turn sunny, Chen Hao's mood was also very good. He opened his hands and patted the two girls' heads at the same time with a trace of pride. How, you're really amazing. Yu is starting to worship you. But now, compared to Yu, you're still a little lacking. Yu, aren't you talking nonsense? You're already at the late-stage avatar, you have the nerve to compete with me in strength? Realm is also a kind of strength, why can't we compete? How, you didn't expect you to be so powerful. If possible, try your best to get a ranking, okay? If you can get into the top 4? Top 4? What's the benefit of being in the top 4? Chen Hao asked. Even if Yu did not mention it, Chen Hao was also aiming for the peak. However, Yu's words made Chen Hao vaguely feel that there seemed to be something unknown about being in the top 4. Yu doesn't know the details, but if we get into the top 4, we can be together, huh? Yu, do you mean that if we get into the top 4, your Ling Tian sect will allow us to? Chen Hao was shocked. Not that kind of together, we can go out of the eastern continent and have fun together. When Xia Yu heard Chen Hao's voice transmission, her beautiful little face that was hidden under the veil blushed slightly. First update. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who voted and tipped. Thank you. Please support my brothers and sisters to read the original version. Thank you. Chapter 3:14. The buzzing of exclamations and discussions filled every corner of the training field. Even the high and mighty sect leaders on the rostrum were shocked. The sect leader of Ling Tian sect, Xia Lingfeng, who was sitting on one of the 10 main seats on the rostrum, stared at Chen Hao from afar. A hint of shock and joy flashed in his eyes. If he did not stop him, Yu's father, Xia Yutang, would not have let Chen Hao go. Yu was blessed by the heavens. How could he let someone who disturbed Yu exist? It was not that Xia Lingfeng did not have the intention to kill Chen Hao at that time, but he held it in. He knew that since Chen Hao and Yu obtained the inheritance at the same time and crossed paths, he must have had an even more shocking opportunity. Although it was not much at that time, there might be a miracle. Moreover, if he really killed Chen Hao at that time, it was equivalent to cutting off Yu's luck and opportunity. It was because of this that he stopped Xia Yutang. Now, the miracle was right in front of him. I didn't expect this kid's attack to reach the intermediate stage of the embodiment stage. However, this is even better. There's hope that we'll meet again. Chu Qingtian's eyes flashed coldly as he thought to himself. Qingdun. At this moment, an old man's voice suddenly entered Chu Qingtian's ears. There's news from the Wan Tong Trading Company? However, it failed. I'm afraid we can only look for it from that kid, Chen Hao. Failed? How's that possible? He's just a sectless cultivator, and the Wan Tong Trading Company can't find him? And they even announced a failure? Chu Qingtian frowned and transmitted his voice in surprise. The Wan Tong Trading Company was known to be omnipotent in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. As long as one could afford it, they could get any information they wanted. For many years, there had never been any news that the Wan Tong Trading Company could not buy anything. How could they announce a failure? I find it strange too. What did they say? They didn't say anything. They just announced that the mission failed. They immediately refunded the deposit and stopped accepting the mission. Qing, I feel strange about this. Could it be that Chen Shui isn't as simple as she seems? What do you mean? The Wan Tong Trading Company should increase the price if they find the mission difficult. But it would not declare failure. Furthermore, the deadline of our mission is the end of the intersect competition. But it's only been 3 days. Could it be that Chen Shui's identity made the Myriad Links Trading Company give up? The old man transmitted. Impossible. Chu Qinggun muttered to himself for a while before his eyes lit up. You don't have to worry about this. I have my ways. Amidst the buzz of discussion, the test began again. Not long after, Xianxia left on his own while everyone was puzzled. For many of the disciples, there was no difference between cultivating and not cultivating at this point. After all, the official competition was just around the corner. With such a mentality, how could cultivation have any effect? He might as well stay here and watch others perform. One had to know that during the test, every disciple displayed their strongest attack. It was almost as if they were watching everyone perform their ultimate skills. Even though everyone knew that the real battle would be different from now, they would at least be able to understand a thing or two, right? Once they met, they would be mentally prepared, but Xianxia was different. Firstly, he had just stepped into the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Although his realm had been consolidated, it was only a consolidated realm. With the increase of his realm, the accompanying trump card would definitely change. While there was still time, Xianxia had to completely control his soaring true essence as soon as possible and familiarize himself with his current situation. Only when he had a clear grasp of himself would he be able to target his opponents in the upcoming battle. Just after Xianxia left, Wang Lin, who was sitting cross-legged at the front of the 7th grade sect, the Myriad Pill Pavilion, was constantly emitting a cold and sharp aura. He pursed his thin lips, his sword-like eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his eyes flickered as if he had fallen into deep thought. 95 pills. Just by combining the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-splitting slash, his attack power has reached the middle stage of the incarnation realm. How can it be like this every time? I don't care. This time, no matter what, I have to. Wang Lin tightly grasped the jade-like hand that resembled a woman's and took a deep breath. He transmitted a message to the sect elders and left the martial arts practice field. When the test ended that day, all the big and small taverns and tea houses in the entire Dongxian city were filled with people. Moreover, the topic of discussion was basically about this year's sect national competition. Xianxia's name was undoubtedly the most frequently mentioned name tonight. His name was already well known in the eastern continent. Moreover, everyone knew that as long as there were no accidents, Xianxia's future growth would definitely be terrifying. It was also something that many people could not imagine. However, at the beginning, Xianxia could not become the focus of this year's sect national competition. After all, his realm was obvious. However, the terrifying power that Xianxia displayed today had allowed Xianxia to step into the ranks of the 4 great masters, Xia Yu, Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing. It's definitely not the 4 great young masters this time. Ling Tian Sect's Xia Yu has a 60% chance of winning first place and becoming the first female young master in the history of the sect national competition. We have to change the way we address her. Should we call her young lady? Bullshit, young lady is too ordinary. I think it's better to call her big sister. However, I'm afraid the 60% you said is inaccurate. Although Xia Yuyu's realm is at the late stage of the incarnation stage, her cultivation path is like a flower in a greenhouse. How can she be compared to Chu Qingtian and the rest? Moreover, Chu Qingtian has already stepped into the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage. Coupled with the Origin Gate's powerful ultimate technique, he's definitely not inferior to Xia Yu. It's hard to say who will win. That's true. No matter what, no one can threaten Xia Yu and Chu Qingtian. The first and second places are for sure. Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing have also stepped into the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage. Although the other top geniuses of the grade 9 sect's core disciples are a threat, they're not that big of a threat. Basically, no one can threaten them, right? After all, the entire cultivation world knows about these people. However, with the power that Xianxia from the star-picking sect displayed today, I think there's some hope. Impossible. I admit that Xianxia is definitely the top genius in our eastern continent for the past 100 years. However, there's no hope for him in this year's inter-sect competition. Although his attack power has reached the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage, that's only the standard. It's definitely not as good as Gu Xing and Wu Ruochen. Moreover, attack power is not combat power. That Xianxia is just advanced. What kind of ultimate technique can he cultivate? What ultimate technique does the star-picking sect have that's stronger than a grade 9 sect? I know that he can at most reach the top 10. Top 4 is out of the question. What you said makes sense. However, don't forget that such a top genius is usually not someone we can measure. Let's wait and see. I actually hope that Xianxia will be awesome. Defeating a grade 9 sect is something that hasn't happened in hundreds of years. It'll definitely be satisfying. This means that our low-level sects aren't bad either, right? After Leng Yihan left, he didn't return to his residence. Instead, he blended into the world and flew towards the outskirts of Dongshan City at an astonishing speed. No one knew Xianxia's combat talent better than he did. Originally, he didn't even think about reaching a higher level. After all, even if he had a great secret, it wasn't a good thing to advance too quickly. However, after seeing the power Xianxia displayed today, Leng Yihan stubbornly wanted to go against his master's wishes, he thought, or rather, she wanted to walk on the same level as Xianxia. Because that feeling was very good. Moreover, she clearly felt that she would gain more than she would lose by doing so. The next day, after the grade 6 sect test, it was time for the grade 7 sections. The number of people in each sect increased. At this moment, in the area where the myriad pill pavilion was located, the two leading elders were burning with anxiety. Especially when they saw that it was almost their turn to go on stage, they were even more anxious. This was because Leng Yihan had left early yesterday and hadn't returned yet. Where did he go? What was he going to do? No one knew. Leng Yihan was now the strongest disciple in the myriad pill pavilion. If he was absent, the loss would be too great. In less than an hour, when it was almost the myriad pill pavilion's turn, a figure arrived at the myriad pill pavilion's area as fast as lightning. The powerful aura instantly caused the surrounding people to widen their eyes in shock. Incarnation Realm. After entering the myriad pill pavilion, the most mysterious person, Leng Yihan, who had only recently appeared, caused a huge commotion in the myriad pill pavilion. At this moment, this commotion directly swept through countless sects. Then, Leng Yihan casually lit up 96 purple crystals with a sword strike, breaking Xianxia's record and causing the entire martial arts practice field to explode. When Leng Yihan became the focus of everyone's discussion, the news that Leng Yihan and Xianxia were tied for first and second place in the 100 Empire ranking was once again revealed. This caused Leng Yihan, who had been completely overshadowed by Xianxia's brilliance, to once again emit a bright light that shook the entire cultivation world. In one fell swoop, he was no less than Xianxia's level. Tentai Lian, who was familiar with Leng Yihan, was shocked. After the shock, a sly smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She really wanted to know what expression Xianxia would have when he received this news. It had to be said that even Tentai Lian felt that Leng Yihan had abnormal thoughts about Xianxia. Moreover, she was more certain than Xianxia and Yang Fan because this was the most terrifying intuition of a woman in this regard. In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. As the grade of the sects tested increased, the strength of the disciples tested became more and more terrifying. All kinds of powerful consummate skills shook everyone's heart and made them incomparably shocked. When it came to the last 10 ninth grade sects, the entire field exploded. Second update. That's all for today. It's the last day to relax before going all out next month. I'll issue a single chapter to settle the accounts later and update my statement next month. Thank you friends who tipped and voted. Chapter 315. There's really no comparison. The 10 great grade 9 sects have not been able to shake their positions for hundreds of years. The grade 8 sects don't even have a third of their numbers, let alone us. This is the general trend. They'll only get stronger and stronger. Which super genius in the Eastern continent doesn't want to enter a grade 9 sect? The aptitudes of the disciples they recruit are much stronger than ours. Moreover, the gap will only get bigger and bigger until it's impossible to overcome. When the 10 great grade 9 sects appeared one after another and lined up in front of the 10 test lights, the entire training field was in a heated discussion. The Spirit Serpent Valley had more than 200 people. The Origin School had the most with almost 500 people. Fortunately, even though there were many grade 9 sects, only a few of them had stepped into the incarnation stage. 3 from the Origin School, 2 from the Sky Sword sect, 2 from the Floating Mist sect, and 2 from the Ling Tian sect. The other 6 great grade 9 sects, including the Spirit Serpent Valley, had 1 each. Xia Yuyu appeared before Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing. Even the veil on her face could not hide her peerless beauty. Her jade-like hand did not move at all. She did not even use any ultimate technique. With just a casual palm strike, she lit up the limit that no one could surpass. 100 stones. What did this mean? It meant that Xia Yuyu's true attack power definitely exceeded 100 stones. As for how much it exceeded, it was not something that anyone could predict. Not bad, not bad. Brother Xia, your precious granddaughter is really compatible with Qingtian. Ha, if I remember correctly, your granddaughter is turning 20 this year, right? Just as Xia Yuyu casually lit up 100 stones, Yin Zhangqiong, the sect master of the Origin School, stroked his long beard with a smile on his face as he looked at Xia Lingfeng. Brother Yin, you flatter me. Yuyu will turn 20 in a few months. Xia Lingfeng smiled. On the surface, there was nothing unusual, but in his heart he was conflicted. He knew his granddaughter the best and understood her the most. Therefore, even he could not act arbitrarily now. When he stood up for Chen Hao because of Fan Fong, it meant that Xia Lingfeng was beginning to let go. The day before yesterday, Chen Hao had displayed a strength that was several times stronger than his cultivation level. Xia Lingfeng had almost loosened his grip on Chen Hao. Although it didn't mean that they would accept Chen Hao, they had to start weighing Chen Hao's value in the future. This was something that the sect master had to consider. Everything had to be done in the interest of the sect. Not bad, not bad. If there are no surprises, the first and second place will be Qingtian and Yuyu. As for who will be the first, it will depend on how these two little fellows fight. Ha! Brother Xia, why don't we settle the matter after the competition? In this way, their strength and mental state will surely improve once more. This? Brother Yin, Yuyu has never experienced anything, so she doesn't have any concept of love. If it's too fast, it won't be a good thing. Moreover, I also asked about it indirectly. Even if it was me, it would not be good for me to forcefully interfere. However, I believe that with Qingtian's strength, talent, and appearance, you will definitely be able to gain Yuyu's favor. So, Brother Yin, it's better that we don't interfere. Let these young people train themselves. Wouldn't that be better? That's right. Brother Xia is right. Ruochen has been admiring your precious granddaughter for a long time. Moreover, it's not right for us to interfere with the matters of the younger generation. Moreover, a forcibly picked melon won't be sweet, right? Only when they are truly in love with each other can they truly reap the benefits. The sect master of Sky Sword sect said. That's what I meant. Xia Lingfeng hurriedly replied. Ha! Since all of you have said so, let them be. With Qingtian's strength, why would he be afraid of others competing with him? Ha! Wu Ruochen, who was next, didn't disappoint. Although his performance wasn't as relaxed as Xia Yuyu, he also lit up 100 crystals. Gu Xing was on par with Wu Ruochen. He also used a terrifying technique and lit up 100 crystals. Yuan Gate had the most people, and Chu Qingtian was standing at the back. He was the last disciple to take the test. Under everyone's gazes, Chu Qingtian exuded a domineering aura. He also waved his hand casually, and rows of purple crystals lit up one after another at a shocking speed. Soon, 100 of them had bloomed. In the incomparably huge cultivation room, there were streaks of ever-changing sword light drifting about. Sometimes they were fierce and violent, sometimes they were ethereal and gentle, and sometimes they would release streaks of resplendent and dazzling white light, causing all the sword light to instantly disappear. Sometimes they would release billowing pitch-black smoke that covered the sky and the sun, causing the entire cultivation room to be immersed in boundless darkness. Chen Hao, who was shirtless, had been immersed in this state for 2 days and 2 nights. He was trying his best to discover all the abilities that he could use. When the sun rose and illuminated the entire Dongxian city, Chen Hao, who was immersed in his cultivation, finally stopped. Phew! Letting out a long sigh, Chen Hao's eyes flickered with a wisp of confidence. Although the offensive strength of the Platinum Sky Split is still only able to light up 95 stars, the battle prowess after fusing various profundities is absolutely not something that offensive strength can compare to. Moreover, I've already mastered the ultimate move, and I can use it 5 times in succession, Chen Hao thought to himself. After going through the baptism of heaven's punishment, his sword realm and attributes did not increase. His understanding of the wind and space attributes did not increase either. However, after 2 days of targeted cultivation, Chen Hao believed that his combat power would not be lower than any mid-stage incarnation realm cultivator. In particular, Chen Hao picked up the true essences of darkness and light that he hadn't touched for a long time, causing his attacks to become even more unpredictable. The darkness and light attributes were comprehended by Chen Hao and Chen Shui in the level 4 cave abode in the ancient Black Wind Cave. Although their realms were very low, these two attributes were second only to the space attribute and the time attribute that only existed in legends. It's a pity that my sword realm is too weak. Moreover, it's not under my control at all. This is so fucking weird. Chen Hao clearly felt that his sword realm had already given birth to a trace of sword realm will. However, this will was not under Chen Hao's control at all. It changed at any time and place on its own. It was like a temperamental, resentful woman. Chen Hao had no choice but to change his attack style according to its changes. Otherwise, it would really be a David. Chen Hao couldn't possibly be fierce when it was gentle, and gentle when it was fierce. That would be the opposite of what he wanted. Chen Hao, come here for a while. Just as Chen Hao pushed open the door of the cultivation room and was about to take a breather, Yuan Tyron's voice sounded. Obviously, he had been paying attention to Chen Hao's situation. Chen Hao responded. He put on the star-picking robe and walked out of his palace. Seeing that Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian were walking together, and when the others also walked out of their palaces, Chen Hao smiled slightly. His figure flashed, and he came to the side of the two women. He said, "You've made up." Hearing Chen Hao's words, the two girls blushed. Immediately, Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian looked at each other. They grabbed Chen Hao's arm at the same time and pinched Chen Hao's waist. Cough cough. What are you doing? Chen Hao grabbed the two little hands as fast as lightning. He was a little surprised. You lied to me. You said that Xiao Wu agreed. Tantai Lian said. You tricked us. Helian Wuxi also stared at Chen Hao and said. This is called lying and also called tricking? Don't you think it's fine now? All right, the sect leader is calling. Let's go. Chen Hao let go of their hands. His figure swayed, and he was a few meters away from them. He took the lead and walked into the hall of the palace. When he found out that Xia Yuyu, Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen had all lit up 100 stones, Chen Hao was a little surprised. Especially when he heard that Xia Yuyu and Chu Qingtian had only casually attacked. This surprised Chen Hao even more. This guy did not seem to realize what it meant for him to light up 95 stones when he was only in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. He only realized that there was a big gap between his attack power and theirs. After all, it was extremely difficult to light up one more stone. Not to mention that Xia Yuyu and Chu Qingtian had casually lit up 100 stones. However, what shocked Chen Hao even more was when he heard that Leng Yihan had stepped into the early stage of the incarnation realm and had lit up 96 stones. This was too freakish, wasn't it? Just like Xia Yuyu said, one's realm was also a kind of strength. Before coming to Dongxian City, Chen Hao originally thought that Leng Yihan, who had stepped into the world of cultivation at the same time as him, had been left far behind. However, when he first met him, Chen Hao knew that although Leng Yihan did not have any reputation in the world of cultivation, he had quietly reached the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. But that was not all. How could he have stepped into the incarnation realm in just 3 or 4 days? This was too freaking fast. Chen Hao, your battle power, what level has it reached? What are your goals for this competition? After the fourth elder and the seventh elder explained the general situation of the participating disciples, especially those who were on par with the disciples of the star-picking sect, Yuan Tairan could not help but ask. There was nothing he could do about it. Chen Hao was too mysterious even for him, the sect master. He was unable to measure Chen Hao's strength. He could clearly see Chen Hao's cultivation level, but his battle prowess was something that could not be measured without a real battle. This was especially true for a monstrous genius like Chen Hao, who was rarely seen in hundreds of years. Don't worry, sect leader. I will do my best. As for what level I can reach, I can't say for now, but I should be able to fight in the incarnation realm. That's good, that's good. The competition will officially begin in 5 days. If you need anything, just say it. No matter what it is, as long as the star-picking sect can do it, we will satisfy you. Also, Yakong, Xiaowu, Xiaolian, Feishue, and the rest of you, if you have any requests, quickly think about it. Tomorrow, Dongxian City will hold the grandest auction in the Eastern continent. It is specifically for the competition and will last until the day before the inter-sect competition. When the time comes, I will take you to see it, Yuan Tairan said to the 10 people who had qualified for the competition. I don't lack anything, Chen Hao said directly. He did not lack anything, but he lacked time. Soon, Long Yukong and the others also expressed that they did not lack anything. However, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian looked like they wanted to say something. First update. I will explode today. I will not stop writing for a moment. Looking for subscriptions, referral tickets, monthly tickets. Thank you. Chapter 316. Little Wu, Little Yen, what do you lack? Don't be shy. Although we're only a third-rank sect and can't provide you with the benefits of a large sect, this is a special time. It concerns the interests of our sect. As long as it's within our means, we'll satisfy you, Yuan Tairan hurriedly said when he saw their expressions. Helian Wuzi was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. If not for her fast advancement and solid foundation, the number of purple crystals she lit up would not be as simple as 86. Even so, she was ranked third in the Zhaixing sect, behind Chen Hao and Long Yukong. Her results were the same as Long Yukong's, but she was ranked third due to the difference in cultivation level. As for Tantai Lian, who was at the peak of early-stage nascent soul, it was equally shocking that she lit up 80 crystals. Yuan Tairan knew that their future achievements would definitely surpass Long Yukong's and be on par with Chen Hao's. After all, the two of them had basically confirmed their relationship with Chen Hao. In the world of cultivation, cultivation companions were very important. The dual cultivation of yin and yang could benefit each other and speed up their cultivation. This was one of the reasons. But more importantly, it was the most mysterious and unfathomable fate. Dao companions were truly intertwined. Once their relationship was confirmed, even their karmic luck would be affected by each other. From there, they would complement each other and become even stronger. This was the real reason why Chu Qingtian and Wu Ruochen wanted Xia Yuyu so much. What I lack the most is primal crystal stones, Helian Wuzi said. I'm the same as little Wu, Tantai Lian said. Didn't we just give you a lot of mid-grade primal crystal stones? Yuan Tairan was a little dumbfounded. One had to know that all the disciples who qualified this time were given enough mid-grade primal crystal stones for half a year according to their cultivation level. Even Chen Hao was no exception. It had only been a few days and it was gone? My cultivation consumes a lot of primal crystal stones. My Phoenix legacy is also very expensive, the two girls said a little embarrassedly. Primal crystal stones, especially mid-grade primal crystal stones, were necessary consumables after reaching the Golden Core realm. The deacons, elders, inner disciples, and core disciples in the sect all had to consume some every month. The amount of primal crystal stones consumed by everyone was absolutely shocking. It was already good enough to maintain a balance. There were very few unnecessary situations. It was the same even for high-level sections. Why didn't you say so earlier? I have it. I'll give it to you later, Chen Hao said straightforwardly. The astute Chen Hao could naturally see Yuan Tyran's dilemma. It wasn't that Yuan Tyran wanted to take out the primal crystal stones, but they were consumables. No matter how many primal crystal stones he had, it would never be too little. What if he stored them up? If you need spirit tools, special spirit herbs, or spirit armors, I can help you buy them. However, it was not easy to obtain primal crystal stones. After all, there were other disciples present who didn't lack primal crystal stones. It was just that Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien were really lacking. They were lacking so much that they didn't even have enough to cultivate now. Ahem. Yuan Tyran coughed and said, "How about this? According to your results, I'll give each of you a certain amount of mid-grade primal crystal stones. Once the competition is over, you will be rewarded according to your results." After everyone received some more primal crystal stones, they dispersed. Chen Hao directly pulled Xiao Wu and Xiao Lian into his palace. After entering the cultivation room, there was a trace of pride on his face as he said, "Last time, I specifically asked you what you needed, but you didn't tell me. What's the relationship between us? Are you treating me as an outsider? Come, I'll show you what it means to be rich." Hiss. 10 storage rings suddenly flew out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows and floated between the three of them. Just by looking at the aura of these storage rings, one could tell that they were the best of the high-level storage rings. In particular, 6 of them exuded an ancient and heavy aura. "Don't disappoint me," Chen Hao said softly. "I obtained these in the Sky City. 4 of them belong to the geniuses of the 9th-rank sects in the South Sea Archipelago, 2 belong to the geniuses of the 9th-rank sects in the West Continent, and the other 4 belong to the people of the South Sea Archipelago. I've been too busy during this period, so I didn't have time to look at them. Come count them. If it's useful, feel free to." Hiss. Before Chen Hao finished speaking, Helian Wuzi seemed to have returned to her appearance when she had just come out of the Xianhuang ancient city. Her beautiful eyes shone with golden light as she grabbed an ancient storage ring and merged her consciousness into it. Tantai Lien saw that Helian Wuzi was not polite, so how could she be polite? In just a few moments, the entire huge training room was filled with countless miscellaneous, but absolutely precious things. Even Chen Hao did not expect that those guys would have such great value. There were a lot of spiritual herbs and spiritual pills in each storage ring. After the nascent soul realm, cultivators needed even more primal crystal stones. This was especially true for the 6 people with Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei. Their needs far exceeded Chen Hao's expectations. The 10 storage rings added up to 800,000 mid-grade primal crystal stones. Duan Yufei was also a genius disciple of a 9th-rank sect, but why was the gap so big? Motherfucker. I didn't expect these guys to be so rich. They are indeed the top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands and the Western Continent. It's a pity that I didn't get you Chungfeng's storage ring. That guy should have more. Chen Hao said regretfully. After a rough estimation, other than the 800,000 mid-grade primal crystal stones, there were more than 20,000 upper-grade primal crystal stones. As for top-grade primal crystal stones, there was not a single one. Obviously, top-grade primal crystal stones were extremely rare. Although there was a clear exchange rate, it was obvious that no one was willing to use high-grade primal crystal stones to exchange for low-grade ones. After all, the higher the grade of the primal crystal stone, the purer the energy it contained, and the easier it was to refine it. Who was willing to waste time refining primal crystal stones? What are these things? After some special spirit medicines, spirit tools, and treasured armors were clearly things that had been eliminated by those disciples. What was left on the ground was only a pile of grotesquely shaped things that looked very beautiful, but didn't have any energy. Helian Wuzi asked with a bit of curiosity. What strange things? They're quite beautiful, but they're obviously not spiritual weapons. Could it be that they have some special function? Tantai Lien asked, puzzled. As she spoke, she reached out to take them. Don't. Chen Hao hurriedly stopped Tantai Lien and said, "You can't touch these things. What are they?" Cough, these things are for special use. Although they seem, maybe not bad, we can't use them. Chen Hao waved his hand and sent out a burst of energy. Kacha, sounds of explosions were heard, and in a moment, the pile of things turned into fine powder. Why did you destroy them? You can sell them, Hellion Wuxi said. They're not worth much. What's there to sell? Chen Hao said vaguely. Motherfucker, although Chen Hao was pure, what kind of woman had he not tasted in his previous life? Other than having no feelings, he had experienced everything. He had played with all kinds of exciting things. In this life, although it was no longer the world of the past, it had to be said that the wisdom and licentiousness of the people of the other world were not inferior to those of Earth. In fact, they were even better. After all, the history of Earth's civilization was not as long as that of the Wuji continent. How could Chen Hao not see through these abnormal props? Even if they were to sell them, they had to be able to afford the embarrassment. There's a total of 800,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones. You can divide them. Also, take these elixirs with you. If you see something you need, just buy it. What about you? Hellion Wuxi asked. I still have a lot. It's enough. I'll give you some more good stuff. It's better to use it when you're upgrading your realm. There's no need to constantly change the primordial crystal stones. Chen Hao said. As he spoke, he directly took out 2 high-grade storage rings. With a thought, 2 water arrows shot out from the storage space between his eyebrows and poured into the 2 storage rings. In an instant, they were filled to the brim. Hellion Wuxi and Tan Tai Lian widened their eyes in surprise. Both of them were inexperienced people. Naturally, they didn't know that this was the legendary and extremely precious spirit spring. However, both of them could still sense the majestic and pure energy of heaven and earth contained in the spirit spring. This is the spirit spring. It's enough for you to use for a long time. Don't use it when you're bathing. Save it. It's best to use it when you're breaking through. That way, you can focus on cultivation without any distractions. It's better than primordial crystal stones. Oh, then I can use it? After such a long time, I haven't broken through to half-step incarnation because I don't have enough primordial crystal stones. I won't go to the auction tomorrow. I'll go into seclusion. Hellion Wuxi said. I'll go into seclusion too. I can feel that I'm about to break through to mid-stage nascent soul. The energy Phoenix and Phoenix need now is too huge. Now that I have the spirit spring and primordial crystal stones, it should be enough for me to break through. Tan Tai Lian said. That's just right. Chen Hao said with a smile. You're not going either? I'd like to see it. However, it's more important to improve my abilities. We'll talk about it in the future. The auction was the largest auction in the entire Eastern continent. Even though Chen Hao didn't need to buy anything, it was still good for him to gain some experience. Moreover, he could familiarize himself with the prices of items and treasures in the cultivation world. This would naturally be beneficial for his future training. However, Chen Hao had just broken through. Especially when he learned about the test results of Chu Qingtian and the others, the confident Chen Hao felt immense pressure again. He had a trump card, but how could others not? Moreover, compared to Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing, Chen Hao's cultivation level was more than 1 level lower. The 3 of them were at the peak of mid-stage incarnation, while Chen Hao was only at mid-stage nascent soul. He hadn't even reached the peak. No matter what, even if he couldn't break through to late-stage nascent soul, he had to reach the peak of mid-stage nascent soul. After speaking to the sect master, Chen Hao immersed himself in cultivation again. In the void tens of thousands of miles away from Dongxian City, a strange ripple suddenly appeared. At this moment, the spatial barrier seemed to be torn apart, and a figure mysteriously appeared in the sky. Phew. No wonder the Eastern continent is so pitifully weak. What kind of prodigy can be nurtured in such a barren heaven and earth spirit chi? A graceful woman said with a frown the moment she appeared. Second update. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your tips and monthly votes. Special thanks to Brother Idealism's Piao Hong for her tip. No matter what, I will complete the 4th update today. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Chapter 317. This graceful and beautiful woman was extremely beautiful. It was impossible to tell her age just by looking at her face. She just floated in the air without a trace of energy fluctuation around her. She was like a speck of dust in the sky. Even if she was standing right in front of you, you would not notice her at all. Let's take a look first. Since the palace master sent me to host the Eastern Mainland's intersect competition this time, it must be something special. This woman was like an imperceptible breeze that disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Even the heaven and earth energy around her did not cause the slightest ripple. After the auction that lasted for a few days, the anticipated intersect competition had finally arrived. The sky was still dark, but the entire Dongxian city was already in an uproar. Countless cultivators gathered into a torrent and rushed to the colossal training field in the center of Dongxian city. Compared to the screening test, there were many times more. When it was about an hour before the start of the competition, all the sects had arrived at the training field one after another. However, other than the disciples who had qualified for the competition, all of them were in the spectator seats. Chen Hao and all the participating disciples were gathered at the contestant seats. The contestant seats were not arranged according to the sects but according to their results. The first row was for disciples who lit up more than 90 stones, the second row was for disciples who lit up 80 to 89 stones, and after the third row, due to the large number of people, most of the disciples' test results were between 70 to 80 stones. Therefore, they were arranged according to 1 stone. 79 stones were in the third row, 78 stones were in the fourth row, and so on. There were a total of 12 rows. They were arranged around the entire core arena area. One could tell the approximate strength of each disciple at a glance. They had originally thought that Chen Hao, Heli and Wuxi, Tantai Lian, and the rest of the star-picking sect's 10 people would arrive relatively early. They hadn't expected that by the time they arrived, quite a few disciples from low-level sects had already arrived. However, there were only 2 people in the first row, a man and a woman. At this moment, almost all of the disciples' eyes were focused on the beautiful back. These 2 people were Ling Tian sect's Xia Yuyu and Zhao Yuanqing. Chen Hao knew Zhao Yuanqing. He was the leader of Ling Tian sect when they entered the Sky City. Although they did not communicate, they had met before. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were in the second row, 100 feet away. There were also dozens of Ling Tian sect's disciples. At this moment, there seemed to be some people complaining about why they had come so early. With the status of the Ling Tian sect, they would have to wait until the end to show off their presence. How, Yuyu has been waiting for you for a long time. Hehe, come and sit next to you. You and senior brother Zhao each take one side, so that you won't be pestered by that annoying fellow later. Are you embarrassed? Then sit down. Yuyu and senior brother Zhao will go over to your side. I'll go. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Chen Hao, who was still hesitating, promptly said, "How could a man be so cowardly? When it was time to take the initiative, one should take the initiative. If he really let Yuyu give herself to him, it would be too unreasonable. Brother Chen, sit here." After Chen Hao finished his transmission, Zhao Yuanqing suddenly stood up and waved at Chen Hao with a smile. It seemed as though the 2 of them were very familiar with each other. "Are you Chen Hao? It's nice to meet you." Wearing a veil, Xia Yuyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. When Chen Hao walked over, she actually stood up and spoke softly with her heavenly voice. "Brother Chen, sit. I didn't expect you to improve so quickly after we parted in the Sky City. Yuyu has long heard that you saved Lan Lan, so she really wants to meet you." After Zhao Yuanqing sat Chen Hao next to Xia Yuyu, he turned around and sat on the other side of Xia Yuyu. Although his voice was not loud, it could definitely be heard by all the people who were paying attention. "You're welcome. It's nice to meet you." Chen Hao did not expect Xia Yuyu to be so thorough. He did not have to face Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian's questioning now. "Brother Chen, after the exchange competition is over, Lan Lan and I will treat you to a drink. Don't reject us." At this moment, Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, who were sitting at the back, also stood up and cupped their fists at Chen Hao from afar. Their expressions were extremely affectionate. "Sure. Chen Hao replied immediately. It was very clear that this play had been sung for him and Xia Yuyu from the start. You must be little Wu and little Lian, right? Come and sit here. Xia Lanlan also greeted Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian at this moment. However, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were a little surprised. How did she know them? And she even addressed them so intimately? However, it was only for a moment before they understood that it must be because of their relationship with Chen Hao that the other party purposely knew them. Yi Feishue and Long Yukong were also in the second row, so they followed Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian and sat together with Ling Tiansek's Xia Lanlan and the others. Countless disciples who were sitting in the last few rows looked at Chen Hao, who was sitting next to Xia Yuyu, and drooled with envy and jealousy. However, they could only be envious and jealous. Even if they could save Xia Lanlan, they were not qualified to sit in the first row. Although Xia Lanlan was more or less upset, she could not stand Xia Yuyu's stubborn coquettishness and intimately communicated with Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian in a low voice. Especially at such a close distance, it made Xia Lanlan exclaim at Chen Hao's luck in love. Why were there so many beautiful girls who liked him so much? Moreover, what made Xia Lanlan feel even more incredulous was that every one of them was so outstanding. Could it be that all of this was affected by Chen Hao's luck? Yuyu, you came here so early just to let me sit next to you? Yes. Our Ling Tian sect only has 2 people with more than 90 stones. I don't want to be approached by Chu Qing Tian or Wu Ruochen, so of course, I wanted you to come over, hee. Aren't you afraid that your grandfather will? I'm not afraid. My grandfather is much more obedient now. He doesn't stop me from dating you anymore. Especially yesterday, he actually mentioned you to me. Mention me? What did he say about me? Grandfather said this. Oh Yuyu, I didn't expect Chen Hao to advance so quickly. His potential is so high, and he's so handsome too. This boy is definitely not ordinary. I'm afraid his future achievements will be beyond my imagination. He's definitely not someone who can be compared to those annoying people like Chu Qing Tian and Wu Ruochen. This time, even if this boy can't get into the top 4, he might have a great opportunity. Forget it, I won't care about you anymore. You're my precious baby, so I'll let you be. You can do whatever you want. Xia Yuyu said through voice transmission. She even imitated Xia Lingfeng's voice and spoke like an old man. The little face hidden under the veil was still changing its expression as he spoke. It made Chen Hao almost spit out. Cough cough. Yuyu, I'm afraid you said that, right? Anyway, that's what I meant. How, I know you must have something against grandfather and father, but they're doing it for the good of our Ling Tian sect. Grandfather doesn't care about us anymore. So, you shouldn't blame him and father. Grandfather told you that the reason why he treated you that way was to stimulate your potential. If you really have you in your heart, and if you really have the ability, you will definitely come to the cultivation world to look for Yuyu. Let's not talk about this. Yuyu, doesn't your grandfather know about my situation with little Wu and little Lian? Of course, he knows you better than Yuyu. Qin Shui knows too. Then why did he? Yuyu has 6 grannies. Xia Yuyu's words made Chen Hao's eyes widen. He instantly understood why Xia Yu did not care about his relationship with Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. Of course, Chen Hao also knew that it was not that Xia Yuyu did not care. It was just that the concept formed since young made her feel that it was not a big deal for a man to have a few Dao companions as long as they liked each other. Yuyu so early? Just when the 2 of them were chatting happily through voice transmissions, a discordant voice suddenly sounded. A figure stood in front of the 2 of them with a smile on his face. He completely ignored Chen Hao and Zhao Yuanqing as he stared at Xia Yuyu with a gentle and affectionate gaze. The person who came was Wu Ruochen. There's a show to watch. Wu Ruochen is one of Xia Yuyu's strongest suitors. I'm afraid this Chen Hao will be chased aside. It'll be even more fun when Chu Qing Tian comes later. At this moment, countless gazes were locked onto Wu Ruochen, Xia Yuyu, and Chen Hao. Zhao Yuanqing, who was sitting at the side, frowned slightly and closed his eyes, pretending to meditate. Xia Yuyu only nodded slightly and did not respond. Chen Hao, right? Go sit at the side. Is this seat for you? Wu Ruochen smiled faintly. He was not surprised by Xia Yuyu's indifference. Instead, he looked at Chen Hao and said nonchalantly. Although his voice was neither warm nor angry, the words he said were overbearing and arrogant, filled with disdain and disdain. One had to admit that when he saw Chen Hao sitting beside Xia Yuyu, he had the urge to stomp on Chen Hao to death. Was this not like a toad lusting after a swan's meat? Although he knew that Chen Hao was related to the Ling Tian sect, it was definitely not at the level where he could interact with Xia Yuyu. Xia Yuyu was just about to speak when Chen Hao did something that made everyone's eyes widen. What was even more unbelievable was that Xia Yuyu did not dodge or block at all. How was this possible? She was the #1 genius beauty in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. Chen Hao actually reached out and patted Xia Yuyu's head. He stood up and stared at Wu Ruochen. Is this seat yours? Who said that I can't sit here? Wu Ruochen was dumbfounded. He simply could not believe what he was seeing. Someone could pat Xia Yuyu's head? And it was someone of the same age? And Xia Yuyu looked so obedient? Is this fucking real? He was a little dizzy, and a violent rage rose from the depths of his heart uncontrollably. When he heard Chen Hao's disdainful question, he suddenly had the urge to kill Chen Hao. His gaze instantly became extremely cold. He stared at Chen Hao and said viciously, "Brat, you're tired of living, aren't you?" Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The 4th update is a little late. I suggest everyone watch it tomorrow. Begging for monthly votes. Calm to vote. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 318. Xia Yuyu did not expect Chen Hao to say that. Seeing Wu Ruochen flipping out, she hurriedly stood up and pulled Chen Hao. Hao, let's sit at the side. Let him go. Junior brother Zhao, let's go. You're right. Lowering myself to the same level as such an uncultured person would be too shameful. Brother Zhao, let's go. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Chen Hao smiled and shrugged his shoulders. His extraordinarily handsome and angular face naturally exuded a sense of coldness and arrogance. As he spoke, Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu walked towards the empty seats at the side. Wu Ruochen was dumbfounded and his face turned green. Especially when he saw everyone's stupefied gazes, he was so ashamed that he couldn't even show his face. No matter what, he had never thought that Xia Yuyu would be so intimate with Chen Hao. How, what kind of address was that? Not only Wu Ruochen, but all of the disciples who were paying attention to this place had faces full of shock. Even Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were no exception. Even the two of them absolutely couldn't say that out loud. In fact, apart from Zhao Yuanqing, Xia Lanlan, Duan Yufei, and the Ling Tian sect's disciples with special identities, everyone was shocked. Wu Ruochen sat down with a gloomy face and did not say anything else. What could he say? If Chen Hao opposed him, he naturally had 100 ways to humiliate Chen Hao without fear. Moreover, he had the intention of killing Chen Hao in the first place. Although it was not as strong as Chu Qingtian, he definitely wanted to. But now, Xia Yuyu's indifferent attitude was equivalent to giving him a few tight slaps in the face in front of countless people. The suffocation was indescribable, and the heartache was unbearable. The reason he had come so early was to sit with Xia Yuyu. Ever since he followed the sect leader and saw Xia Yuyu for the first time in the Ling Tian sect, Xia Yuyu was already the goddess of his dreams. Although there was no progress and they did not have many chances to meet, he believed that he was the only one who could get Xia Yuyu. Even Chu Qingtian was no match for him. This was because Chu Qingtian, who had multiple women, couldn't compare to him in terms of chastity. But now, because he had seen Xia Yuyu care about Chen Hao with his own eyes in Black Iron City, and later saw Chen Hao's astonishing talent and potential, he had felt that Chen Hao was a little bit of a threat. But now, Chen Hao had risen to a level that made him feel powerless. When did the two of them develop to such an intimate level? Boundless hatred began to spread in Wu Ruochen's heart. Just as the conflict between Chen Hao, Xia Yuyu, and Wu Ruochen came to an end, dozens of disciples quickly came over. One of them took the lead, and after seeing Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu together, the corner of his mouth slightly hooked up, and his cold eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Immediately after, his figure flashed and he walked over. Chen Hao, you're early. Leng Yihan smiled and sat directly next to Chen Hao. The moment he sat down, he looked at Xia Yuyu, who was wearing a veil, and nodded slightly. Even he couldn't help but marvel at Xia Yuyu's beauty. Aren't you early too? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've already advanced to the embodiment realm. Don't tell me you're trying to suppress me? Although Chen Hao despised Leng Yihan's feminization, the two of them were still friends. Before Leng Yihan showed any improper thoughts, they were still friends. So, he couldn't ignore him. Congratulations, you guessed right. If it weren't for the power you showed, I wouldn't want to take the risk. This time, I will definitely beat you. That's not necessarily true. By the way, have you seen your senior sister recently? Chen Hao asked. Leng Yihan was slightly stunned, and then hurriedly said, Senior sister? Which one are you talking about? Chen Shui. You've seen her? Leng Yihan asked knowingly. This couldn't be helped. If he didn't do this, it would be a bit strange. I've always been in the Myriad Pill Pavilion, and senior sister is either training or with master. We rarely have the chance to meet. How do you know my senior sister? Oh, right, she should be considered your sister. Do you miss your sister? Leng Yihan stared at Chen Hao with a slight smile on his lips. Just asking, Chen Hao said. Why are you sitting here? Are you familiar with her? Leng Yihan suddenly transmitted his voice. Why do you care so much? Chen Hao glanced at Leng Yihan, obviously not intending to explain. He was even more suspicious of Leng Yihan's inclination. Just now, when Leng Yihan looked at Xia Yuyu as a man, Chen Hao could clearly feel that this guy wasn't looking at her with a man's eyes at all, because there wasn't any desire in his eyes that a man should have, just a little bit of surprise. This was very abnormal, especially when facing a beautiful girl like Xia Yuyu. He's very strange. At this moment, Xia Yuyu suddenly transmitted her voice to Chen Hao. How is it strange? Intuition. I don't know how it's strange, but it's just strange. Yuyu, you're really amazing. You can even feel this. Don't worry, I know. Chen Hao said, a little surprised. As the official start of the competition approached, more and more sect disciples rushed over. There were only 20 or so people with scores over 90. The first row was naturally sparsely seated. Although no one said it out loud, more and more people were transmitting their voices to each other. After all of the disciples present were more or less familiar with the disciples of other sections. This situation directly caused countless people to look at Wu Ruochen, Xia Yuyu, and Chen Hao from time to time. Chen Hao did not mind, but Wu Ruochen felt uncomfortable as if there was a blade on her back. At this moment, he, who had always hated Chu Qingtian, hoped that Chu Qingtian would come quickly. He believed that with Chu Qingtian's personality, he would definitely get close to Xia Yuyu. What would happen then? It would be embarrassing. However, when all the sects had arrived, including the sect leaders on the rostrum, the huge team from the Yuan Gate finally made their grand entrance. Wu Ruochen knew that at this moment, even Chu Qingtian wouldn't dare to act recklessly. That was indeed the case. When Chu Qingtian saw Xia Yuyu and Chen Hao, he, who was emitting a domineering aura, frowned slightly. Just his gaze was enough to tell everyone that Chen Hao had angered him. The consequences would be severe. After a while, Chu Qingtian, who received a message from someone else, exuded an intense killing intent. He didn't even try to hide it. However, at this moment, everyone's attention was no longer on Chen Hao and the others. Instead, they were looking at the rostrum with a trace of surprise. On the huge rostrum, hundreds of sect leaders, including the 10 sect leaders of the 9th rank sects, were looking in one direction respectfully. Even the sect leader of the Yuan Gate was no exception. Other than a few disciples of the 9th rank sects, everyone was curious. What kind of person could make these sect leaders be so respectful? They hadn't even seen his shadow, and it was already like this. What would happen if he came? Let the competition begin. I won't be appearing for the time being. When it was time, a faint voice suddenly cut through the void and drifted across the entire martial arts arena. The voice belonged to a woman, and it was filled with endless majesty. Although it was very soft, Everyone in the huge martial arts arena could hear it clearly. It was as if she was speaking in their ears. This wasn't something that could be done with just cultivation. We will follow the Celestial Supremacy's instructions. We will follow the Celestial Supremacy's instructions. Under the lead of the sect leader of the Yuan Gate, the sect leaders of the 10 ninth rank sects immediately responded in unison. Although the other hundreds of sect leaders didn't know what was going on, when they heard the two words Celestial Supremacy, their hearts were as clear as day, and they all responded excitedly. Chen Hao, perform well. No matter what, show your true potential. Ihan, this is related to your future. Although your identity is not simple, this is also a great opportunity. You must show your full strength. In an instant, some of the super geniuses of the sects received voice transmissions from the sect leaders. What they said was basically the same, and that was to do their best to show themselves in the competition. It didn't matter even if they couldn't get into the top few. As long as they showed that they had great potential, they might encounter a huge opportunity that could change their future. And all of this was brought about by the woman who called herself Celestial Supremacy. You, who is that? Chen Hao thought of what you said to him just now. Even if he couldn't get into the top 4, he might encounter a huge opportunity, so he asked through voice transmissions. It should be an envoy from the Wuxia Immortal Palace. The top 4 disciples in the previous intersect competitions, who are known as the 4 great young masters in the cultivation world, are favored by the Wuxia Immortal Palace and announced to the entire Wuxia continent. Announced what? Any expert above the primordial soul realm is not allowed to kill these people, who are the 4 great young masters. They can travel through the entire Wuxia continent. They can train everywhere. It's fine if they die in the hands of geniuses of the same level, but if they're at the primordial soul realm, these supreme elders will be killed by the Wuxia Immortal Palace. This is also a rule set to prevent the genius disciples from being killed. However, once they break through to the primordial soul realm, this rule will be cancelled. Under normal circumstances, the person who comes is just an envoy with an ordinary status in the Wuxia Immortal Palace. They're on the same level as the sect leaders of our sections. But this time, it's a Celestial Supremacy. The huge opportunity that Grandfather mentioned is the Celestial Supremacy's will. As long as it's at the Celestial Supremacy level, if they see our potential, they can directly plant the Celestial Supremacy's will. That's a supreme ability. It's much better than getting the 4 great young masters. Our eastern continent is considered the weakest region in the Wuxia continent. In hundreds of years, no one should be able to get the Celestial Supremacy's will. Xia Yuyu said through voice transmissions. Chen Hao frowned slightly as he thought of Jian Wufei from the western continent. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation tickets? Thank you. Tomorrow, Dark Mountain will continue working hard. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 319. After the sect master of the Yuan school made a brief opening speech, a mysterious aura was emitted from the center of the martial arts field. 10 huge arenas rose from the ground and appeared in front of everyone's eyes. There were more than 30,000 disciples. Although the chances of first and second rank sects passing were extremely low, the chances of advanced sects passing were very high. Especially for the 8th and 9th rank sects, the number of eliminated disciples was very small. In the end, there were more than 6,000 disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. There was no competition in the Eastern continent that could compare with such a large number of disciples who were above the nascent soul realm. The top 10 ninth rank sects will still be leading the competition. You will be divided into 10 groups according to your sections. On the rostrum, the first rank sect masters will draw lots. An old man with a powerful aura appeared in the sky above the 10-direction arena. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and sent out 12 undetectable lots wrapped in mysterious energy. Although there were more than 200 first-rank sects, only 12 of them had disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. In this situation, there were 2 groups with 1 more first-rank sect. There were more than 100 second-rank sects, and more than 50 of them had disciples who were officially qualified for the competition. Basically, there were no sects above the 3rd rank that were completely annihilated. Therefore, there were a total of nearly 300 sections. Immediately, the 12 first-rank sect masters sitting on the rostrum sent out their energy and absorbed one of the lots. Then it was the 2nd rank, 3rd rank, 4th rank, until the last 10 9th rank sections. They drew lots in order. The remaining sects that could not be evenly divided would be divided according to the order of the first round. Although it was not completely fair, at least the number of sects was equal. After the drawing of lots, the sects in each group were decided and the number of each group was given. This kind of grouping could not only show the strength of an individual, but also the overall strength of the sections. It was as if the groups were held at the same time. Soon the results were out. The old man who acted as the referee immediately announced the groups that each sect belonged to. Sky Sword Sect? What a coincidence! When he learned that the Star-Picking Sect and the Sky Sword Sect were in the 6th group, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. Humph! Boy, pray you don't meet me too early. At this moment, Wu Ruoqin's eyes emitted a hint of coldness as he looked at Chen Hao and gritted his teeth. Even though he knew that with Chen Hao's Star-Picking Sect in the same group as the Heavenly Sword Sect, the Heavenly Sword Sect's results would more or less be affected by Chen Hao, this was what he wanted the most. In the other groups, he wasn't confident that he could stop Chen Hao from advancing. However, in his group, there was definitely a chance for him to encounter Chen Hao. If he was lucky enough to encounter Chen Hao early, he had absolute confidence that he could make Chen Hao lose his battle strength and directly stop him in the group stage. He wouldn't let anyone from the Star-Picking Sect get away. The only pity was that it was impossible to kill one's opponent in the inter-sect competition. This was because every single dueling ring was guarded by a pinnacle primordial spirit realm advanced stage expert. Once there was a life-threatening situation, they would definitely step in to save the other party. Even though Wu Ruoqin could easily bribe the guards with his status, he did not dare to kill anyone. If he did, he would lose the right to continue the competition. Such a severe punishment was aimed at the disciples who held grudges. How that Wu Ruoqin's strength is ranked 3rd or 4th. If he encounters you, he will definitely be heavy-handed. You have to be careful. If you can't, just admit defeat early and don't give him a chance. My goal is to fight with you. How can I be defeated by him? Don't worry. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with pride as he transmitted his voice. Xia Yuyu was slightly taken aback. Then, a smile appeared on her beautiful little face as she transmitted her voice encouragingly. That's good. Yuyu, wait for me. Good luck. In fact, Xia Yuyu had no idea how strong Chen Hao was. In terms of pure attack power, he was 4 gems lower than Wu Ruoqin. That was a huge gap. However, even though Xia Yuyu couldn't figure out how Chen Hao could defeat Wu Ruoqin, she was secretly delighted when she heard Chen Hao's arrogant words. So what if he couldn't beat him? Wu Ruoqin couldn't kill Chen Hao, nor did he dare to. And Chen Hao had the immortal bloodline. Even if he was seriously injured, it wouldn't be a big deal. Moreover, the confidence in Chen Hao's eyes made Xia Yuyu look forward to it. There were 10 groups. The number of 1st to 8th grade sects in each group was completely equal unless there was an odd number. The 9th grade sects each occupied a group. After the main judges of the 10-sided arena were in place, the disciples of the 1st and 2nd ranked sects in each group were the first to enter the arena, starting from the one with the worst results. It wasn't until all the disciples of one side were defeated by the other side that the decisive battle was over. In the even-numbered matches, the strongest of the sects would go up first, and the strongest would go up first. But no matter what, the sects with more people naturally had the absolute advantage. After all the sects in the group had fought, the group stage was half over. Through the sect-type battles, the individual ranking was evaluated by more than 500 sect leaders at the same time. The strength of the defeated opponent, the performance in the battle, and so on were all clear. No one could be biased. Once the ranking was out, the top 100 disciples of each group would enter the top 100 individual elimination round. All the disciples were clear about the specific segments before the competition, including the order of the sects to enter the arena. The first round was from the weak to the strong, and the next round was from the strong to the weak. There was no such thing as Tianji's horse racing. The reason for this was to give all the disciples a chance to perform. In a short moment, the entire 10 Directions combat arena fell into a vigorous battle. How, the Xiaxing sect's results this time will definitely be good. The number of 6th grade sects in the competition is the same as yours. Some of them didn't even have 10. In the first round, if I meet a 6th grade sect, I won't have a chance to fight. Chen Hao smiled and said confidently. This confidence didn't come from Long Yukong or Yi Feishue, but from Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian. This was because in these few days, Helian Wuzi had finally reached the peak of the late nascent soul stage with the help of the spirit spring and a large amount of primordial crystal stones. In addition, Helian Wuzi could only use the power of reincarnation in battle. Chen Hao believed that Helian Wuzi would definitely have an amazing performance. At the very least, a half-step avatar would have to stand aside. Tan Tai Lian was also valiant and had successfully reached the mid-nascent soul stage. How much could a 7-star secret art increase in power? If Chen Hao wanted to fight, it would only be possible if he met a 7th grade, 8th grade, or 9th grade sect with a large number of people. You definitely won't have to fight in the first round. No matter which sect we meet, it's so boring. Luckily you're here, Xiaoyu said. The Xiaxing sect was the 4th in the 6th group. It was time for them to fight in the second round. Their third opponent was also a 3rd grade sect, and they only had a pitiful 3 people. The weakest member of the Xiaxing sect defeated 2, the second defeated the third, and the competition ended. In the second round, under the envious gazes of Leng Yihan and Xiaoyu, Chen Hao, as the strongest member of the Xiaxing sect, had a chance to fight. His figure flashed and he appeared in the 6th arena. His opponent was the second in the group, a 7th grade sect. At this moment, the entire martial arts practice field turned to look at the 6th ring. Without a doubt, the Xiaxing sect and Chen Hao were now the focus of this year's inter-sect competition. Moreover, Chen Hao had the highest test score among the contestants so far. The Xiaxing sect had 10 people. That 7th grade sect was one of the stronger ones among the 7th grade sections. They were even stronger than the Flying Sword sect, with a total of 18 people. They were only 2 people short of the Xiaxing sect. Moreover, the strongest member of this 7th grade sect was a half-step avatar, but during the test, he had struck out with an attack power of 89. This was also not to be underestimated, Chen Hao, right? Attack power doesn't mean everything. I'll let you understand that the gap between realms, the comprehension of the true essence, and the use of battle techniques are the key to battle power. Your Xiaxing sect, I alone, will defeat all of you. How can a small 3rd grade sect let you turn the sky upside down? A short, ugly young man with a mustache stared at Chen Hao and said arrogantly the moment he stepped onto the arena. The aura of a half-step avatar surged from his body unscrupulously. His big hand was dragging a huge axe that was 3 times longer than his height. It must have weighed at least a few thousand kilograms. Shining brightly, it looked quite majestic. This made Chen Hao feel very amused. Motherfucker, just this appearance alone made Chen Hao have the impulse to beat him up. How dare he boast so arrogantly? This AI Qianquo is not simple. He was born with divine strength and has comprehended the true essence of the earth attribute to the peak of the greater success stage. His heavy and majestic attack could not be shown during the test. This is a bit interesting. I hope Chen Hao's battle power is as great as the rumors say, otherwise it will not be easy to win. You still don't believe me? Let me tell you, AI Qianquo is no match for Chen Hao. Just wait and see, I can guarantee that Chen Hao will defeat at least the top 5 experts of their sect. Many people in the crowd were discussing. Some people who had not really seen Chen Hao's strength naturally could not help but doubt. After all, the test did not represent battle power at all, especially for real geniuses. But the very few who had seen Chen Hao's invincible power firmly believed in Chen Hao's battle power. Don't cry later. 18 people isn't a lot. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a slightly evil and arrogant smile no matter how one looked at it. Come on. Boom. The moment the referee indicated that they could start, AI Xianxia's two thick and short legs suddenly stomped on the ground. His whole body rose up violently, and the big axe he was dragging became a clenched grip with both hands. A heavy and majestic terrifying aura that could split mountains and fill the sea suddenly swept across the entire arena. First update. I have been writing since this morning. This is the first time I have completed it. I have racked my brains, looking for monthly votes to encourage me. Thank you. Chapter 320. At this moment, the mysteries of the peak of the earth attribute allowed everyone to clearly feel that AI Xianxia's axe contained a mountain-like, suffocating pressure. Some of the disciples with weaker cultivations widened their eyes in shock. If they were to face such an attack, just this pressure alone would be enough to make them unable to move an inch. Not bad. Chen Hao thought in his heart. His black eyes were indifferent and calm like water, and he stared motionlessly at the enormous axe that was swiftly enlarging in his eyes. 30 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, 10 feet. Just when some ignorant people thought that Chen Hao was intimidated by the opponent's pressure and had no ability to resist, two bright lights suddenly flashed in Chen Hao's eyes. Clang, to, boom. Drawing the sword, striking, thrusting, sheathing the sword. Fast, ruthless, accurate. In the blink of an eye, he had completed the simplest attack that everyone knew but no one used anymore. It was as if there was no ultimate skill involved and it was just a movement that sword apprentices could perform. But with a loud bang, AI Xianxia's short and stout body flew out like a kite with a broken string, fiercely crashing into the boundary of the arena. The huge axe also flew out of his hand. Countless gasps could be heard in the arena. Even those who already knew that Chen Hao would easily win revealed a look of surprise. No one had thought that a half-step incarnation-level expert with terrifying strength would not even have the chance to resist in a single move. His weapon was sent flying and he collapsed on the arena. They were even more surprised when they saw blood spurting out from the corner of AI Xianxia's mouth. So strong. The most basic sword skill can actually display such power. Too powerful. I'm afraid that apart from those at the incarnation level, no one can fight with Chen Hao. His fighting strength is far beyond imagination. Everyone exclaimed as they looked at Chen Hao, who stood there calmly and proudly as if he had not used his sword at all. Xia Yuyu's beautiful little face revealed a trace of surprise and joy. Even she did not expect that Chen Hao could cultivate a simple sword to such a level. Not only was it fast and accurate, it was also incomparably smooth. There were no flaws in the connection between drawing the sword, thrusting the sword, stabbing, and sheathing the sword. In the entire martial arts arena, only Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and Leng Yihan were not surprised at all. In their hearts, anything that happened to Chen Hao was not surprising. This was only the beginning. They knew very well that in the following matches, Chen Hao would definitely shine the brightest. Just like how Chen Hao had once done on the ranking of the 100 dynasties, he would defeat all the opponents that seemed powerful and had no chance of victory. It's just that his attack power is stronger than that idiot's, his speed is faster, and he's able to find a flaw. He's no threat to me at all. Wu Ruochen saw everyone's surprise, and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes as he thought to himself disdainfully. Next. A moment later, when the referee was certain that AI Xianxia had no combat power left, he shouted, "Wind Shadow, don't go head-to-head with that kid. It's basically impossible for you to defeat him with your strength. Just drag it out and exhaust his vital essence. We have 18 people. Can't we defeat 10 of them?" Yes. The disciple named Wind Shadow was ranked second in the sect, just a little bit behind AI Xianxia. The moment he was about to enter the arena, the sect elder transmitted a message to him. "You're very strong, but it won't be that easy to defeat me." The moment the disciple named Wind Shadow stepped onto the arena, he looked at Chen Hao with a serious expression and said. His entire aura became erratic at this moment. Wisps of cool breeze swirled around him, as if he could turn into a gust of cool breeze at any time. When the referee put down his hand, he immediately disappeared from the spot. Mastery of the true essence of the wind attribute? Not bad. Chen Hao sensed his opponent's aura and thought to himself. It had to be said that these disciples had already reached a realm in the true essence of the wind attribute that even Chen Hao was envious of. But it was useless to him. Especially after experiencing the terrifying baptism of heaven's punishment, Chen Hao's soul perception had been improved tremendously. When wind shadow turned into a gust of cool breeze and became erratic and unpredictable, everyone thought that wind shadow would be able to fight Chen Hao for a long time. But then, Chen Hao suddenly attacked with his sword. It was still the same simple sword attack. Even his posture and expression did not change at all. The only difference was that his speed was faster. Under his amazing speed, the distance of several hundred feet was like a straight waterfall, leaving behind many afterimages. Without giving too much time to guess, a scream accompanied by an arrow of blood appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In less than 2 breaths, wind shadow followed in Ai Qianqiuo's footsteps. It was still the same sword attack, the same sword attack. How did he lock onto wind shadow so quickly? No one knew. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. Every time, it was the same sword attack. Moreover, as his opponent became weaker and weaker, Chen Hao's sword attack also slowed down automatically, as if he did not want to waste a single bit of his energy. And every time, there was no suspense. After 5 consecutive attacks, the psychological defense of the remaining 13 people from the Grade 7 sect was completely destroyed. No one thought that Chen Hao would be so powerful. Most importantly, Chen Hao did not seem to use any energy at all. This was the most unbearable thing. 18 swords, 18 people. Chen Hao returned to Xia Yu's side in high spirits. A rank 7 sect had been overturned by him so easily. This boy is really not simple. He didn't reveal any of his trump cards from the beginning until the end. Looks like nobody can force him to show his true strength unless he meets someone on the manifestation stage, many old men on the main platform thought to themselves. With their experience, it was natural for them to see more clearly than anyone else. Meanwhile, the sect leader of Ling Tian sect, Xia Lingfeng, stared at Chen Hao, who was sitting with his precious granddaughter from afar. The more he stared, the more he felt. The competition continued. Soon, everyone's attention was attracted by another ring. Chen Hao, who was the first to defeat all of his opponents, was gradually overshadowed by his brilliance. Without even drawing his sword, he defeated everyone from a Grade 8 sect by himself. After that, all the top powerhouses from the top 10 sects went on the same pattern. Including Wu Ruochen, they all passed the round by themselves with ease. When Xia Yuyu went on the stage, the whole place was in an uproar. What made Chen Hao a little speechless was that the young disciples of the Grade 6 sect that the Ling Tian sect had encountered were all in a daze when they went up the ring to battle Xia Yuyu. Their strength was already worlds apart from Xia Yuyu's, and if they were in a daze, how could they fight? Xia Yuyu seemed to be playing with them as she casually released energy and beat the crap out of them. They did not forget to look at Xia Yuyu when they vomited blood. In fact, when they encountered these Grade 9 sects, everyone was just playing around. How could they possibly win? Even if the top powerhouse ran out of energy and fought them one-on-one, they would be drowned by the sheer number of people. Under such circumstances, who would have the heart to fight the top beauty in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world? They all went up to take a closer look so that when they returned, they could boast about the experience of fighting on the same stage as Xia Yuyu. In the third round, the star-picking sect encountered a Grade 3 sect. They started from the weakest, and even Tantai Lian did not have a chance to attack before the star-picking sect won easily. In the fourth round, they started from the strongest to the weakest. Chen Hao still used the same sword move and defeated a Grade 5 sect. After the day's competition ended, there were a total of 10 rounds. What made Wu Ruochen very depressed was that, because of Chen Hao's strength, the judges had clearly placed the star-picking sect in a very high position. The Sky Sword sect and the star-picking sect were never allowed to meet. In these 10 rounds, Chen Hao took the lead in all the even-numbered rounds. The audience almost vomited blood when they saw this. The reason was very simple. This guy only used the same one-sword move over and over again. However, even the 3 rank 8 sects that he encountered were defeated by him. Moreover, no one could make Chen Hao use the second sword move. Even some of the grade 9 sects number 1 incarnation realm experts were defeated by Chen Hao. Because other than Xia Yuyu, Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen, the other 6 grade 9 sects number 1 experts were all unable to maintain the same state. Ha! Good. I never thought that you would be so strong. And Xiaolian is also very strong. Ha! Keep it up. If this continues, it's very possible for us to get second place in the group. Ha! When the day's competition ended and everyone returned to the courtyard, Yuan Tairan and the 3 elders' faces were like blooming daisies. They were glowing and full of energy. Yuan Tairan, the sect master, could not stop laughing in front of everyone. He had completely lost the dignity that a sect master should have. The 3 of you don't need to be depressed. There will always be a chance to fight. As long as you perform well, there will be no problems. I really hope that you will never have a chance to fight. Then our star-picking sect will definitely be first place in the group. Pa. Yuan Tairan looked at the depressed Long Yukong, Yi Feishue, and Helian Wuzi and laughed. The 3 of them were indeed depressed, especially Long Yukong, who wanted to show his strength. 1 day, 10 matches, and the 3 of them did not have a chance to fight. The competition from weak to strong ended when it came to Tan Tai Lian. Tan Tai Lian's terrifying power of the Phoenix inheritance swept all the remaining people. And when it came to weak, Chen Hao was even more perverted. Even against grade 8 sects, there was no exception. How could the 3 of them not be depressed? After waiting for an entire day, they did not even have a chance to fight. But even though they were depressed, they were still happy. After all, if Chen Hao were to be defeated, it would very likely mean that the star-picking sect had lost. Sect Master. Ruochen, you don't look good today. What's wrong? When the people of the Sky Sword sect gathered in the courtyard, Wu Ruochen's expression was extremely gloomy. He suddenly transmitted his voice to the sect master. Second update. Thank you for your tips and votes. Thank you. Wu Shan continued with the third update. It might be a bit late. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, can you vote for Wu Shan? Only a pitiful 2 today. Chapter 321. It's nothing. Sect Master, can we meet the Xiaoxing sect in the competition tomorrow? But did that kid upset you? The sect master of the Sky Sword sect asked. Although he didn't know what had happened before the competition, he knew why Wu Ruochen had brought the disciples of the Sky Sword sect over early in the morning. But in the end, it was Chen Hao who sat with Xia Yuyu. In addition, Chen Hao's outstanding performance today was no less than Wu Ruochen's. It wasn't hard to guess Wu Ruochen's thoughts. That kid already knows Xia Yuyu, and their relationship seems to be. Sect Master, I can't help it. If it's possible, let me fight him tomorrow. If a small 3rd-rank sect can achieve results that even an 8th-rank sect can't because of that kid, it's ridiculous. This is a small matter. There's no problem with the arrangement, but the strength that Kid and Lung Yihan showed today is no less than the top experts of the 6th 9th rank sects, including the Spirit Serpent Valley. They might even become your rivals. Sect Master, he's no match for me. Don't worry. He's no match for you, that's for sure. But you should know that this is only the group stage. If you want to take him down, it's impossible not to reveal some of your trump cards. Your opponents are Gu Xing, Chu Qingtian, and Xia Yu, not him. Ruochen, your temper is your biggest weakness. You have to consider this carefully. You can't lose the big picture for the small things. According to me, don't fight him before the group stage. I'll arrange for you to meet the Xiaoxing sect in the odd-numbered matches, and let Meng Lang and the others deal with the Xiaoxing sect. This way, you can test that kid's bottom line. It won't be too late to deal with him after the top 20. Sect Master. Wu Ruochen didn't expect the sect master to think so highly of Chen Hao. This made him feel surprised and unhappy. Alright, that's it. Also, don't show your emotions on your face. Otherwise, you'll suffer a great loss. The sect master stopped Wu Ruochen. Watching Wu Ruochen leave, the master of the Sky Sword sect shook his head helplessly. There was something he did not tell Wu Ruochen. With the strength that Chen Hao and Leng Yihan had shown today, even if they could not compete with Wu Ruochen and the others, there was a slight possibility that they could obtain a greater opportunity. After all, the two of them had a great advantage in terms of age and performance. Only Xia Yu could surpass them in this aspect, while Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing and Chu Qingtian were inferior. If Chen Hao really obtained the favor of the immortal reverend of the limitless immortal palace, offending such a person was definitely not a good thing. Even a rank 9 sect had to be wary. So, the girl you were talking about was Xia Yuyu? After the people of the Zhaixing sect dispersed, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian followed Chen Hao to his room. Tantai Lian glared at Chen Hao and asked. Chen Hao was slightly stunned and said, "What did Xia Lanlan say to you?" "She said everything." How? Helian Wuzi imitated Xia Yuyu's voice, and there was a trace of dissatisfaction on her cold little face. But it was not as serious as Chen Hao thought. After a slight pause, she said, "Did you really know her in the secular world? And you stayed together for more than a year? Was it that time when you entered the relic?" Ahem. Chen Hao smiled and shrugged. He sat on the chair and said, "You already guessed it, so why ask?" "Can't I ask? What kind of relic was it? Why did it take so long?" Helian Wuzi asked. "It was a relic that was specially condensed for a man and a woman. Yuyu and I were coincidentally chosen at the same time. We had to comprehend the 9 turns of Heaven-Yang Earth-Yin formula before we could come out. I comprehended the Heaven-Yang, and she comprehended the Earth-Yin. At that time, my cultivation was too low, so it took more than a year." "Was it dual cultivation?" Tantai Lian asked. "Not exactly, it was just a kind of spiritual dual cultivation," Chen Hao said frankly. "Then you desperately wanted to step into the cultivation world earlier, was it for Xia Yuyu, right?" Helian Wuzi thought of the scene at that time and couldn't help but ask. She more or less felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. In fact, anyone would feel uncomfortable. She desperately chased after Chen Hao's footsteps, but Chen Hao desperately chased after another woman's footsteps. Who would feel good? Ah. Seeing Helian Wuzi's expression, Chen Hao smiled, and a touch of seriousness and determination flashed on his extraordinarily handsome face. He said, "There is no such thing as for anyone. From the time I entered the Shao family and became a martial artist, my goal was to reach the peak of martial arts and become a true powerhouse. I once told you, the land of women is the tomb of a hero. I also scolded you many times, a femme fatale. Without Yuyu, I would have done that. It's only because of Yuyu, or rather, because of Yuyu's father and grandfather, that I urgently wanted to step into the cultivation world." As Chen Hao spoke, his angular face naturally flashed with a hint of arrogance that looked down on the world. It was an arrogance that came from his bones, and a trace of coldness appeared on his expression. He continued, "Nobody can trample on my dignity. No matter who he is, no matter how strong he is." Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian might have been affected by Chen Hao's aura. They originally had some thoughts, but at this moment, they couldn't say anything. They just stared at Chen Hao in a daze, and in their hearts, they didn't doubt Chen Hao's words at all. Especially when they thought of Chen Hao's experience in these few years, it confirmed Chen Hao's words. "Yu is a very good person. She knows you guys." But she didn't say anything. "Okay, you guys go back and cultivate. In today's competition, the strong sects happened to let me fight. Tomorrow Xiao Wu, Senior Sister Yi, and Long Yakong, I'm afraid the 3 of you will also have to fight. If you meet the Sky Sword sect, it will definitely be a tough battle. Go back and prepare well." Chen Hao's voice softened as he said to the 2 girls. "Oh." At this time, the 2 girls nodded obediently and walked out of Chen Hao's palace together. After the 2 of them left, Chen Hao, whose expression seemed to be very serious, let out a long sigh of relief. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing a slightly complacent smile. He muttered to himself, "The problem of the heart is actually not a problem. Seems very simple. Cultivate, cultivate, Everything is centered on stepping onto the peak of the martial Dao, isn't it? If I meet Wu Ruochen tomorrow, it will definitely be a tough battle. The peak of the middle stage of the incarnation realm, just strength alone, surpasses me by a lot. Moreover, the Sky Sword sect has 2 incarnation realm experts. It's very difficult. After stepping into the cultivation room and sitting cross-legged, Chen Hao thought to himself. Although his performance today was unfathomable in the eyes of everyone, Chen Hao knew that the seemingly simple sword strike was the fusion of the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-splitting slash. It definitely consumed a lot of energy. Fortunately, the sects he met were not very strong, and the opponents were getting weaker and weaker, so he could maintain the momentum of defeating them with one sword strike. In addition to his abnormal recovery ability, it made him look like he was in peak condition every time, as if he did not consume much energy. But in fact, Chen Hao knew very well that once he met an incarnation realm expert, he would definitely not be able to maintain that state. Moreover, his personality had always been to do things to the end. As a disciple of the star-picking sect, since he had come to this step, there was no reason for him not to lead the star-picking sect to fight for first place in the group. This also meant that not only did he have to defeat Wu Ruochen, but he also had to defeat the other incarnation realm expert of the Sky Sword sect, as well as a large number of half-step incarnation realm and late nascent soul realm experts. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and the others to take down the Sky Sword sect, which had a large number of disciples. How could 10 people compare to the Sky Sword sect, which had close to 200 people who passed the test? Even Chen Hao only had this ambition, but he did not have the slightest confidence. If others knew that Chen Hao had this idea, they would probably be scared silly. Was this something that a human could do? Huff! Letting out a long breath, Chen Hao collected his thoughts, took out 2 extremely precious top-grade primordial crystal stones, placed them on his palms, and immersed himself in cultivation. In his Dan Tian, the 7-colored nascent soul emitted a misty 7-colored light. As Chen Hao recited the primary outline of the Great Tao, the vigorous and surging true essence immediately flowed like a torrent through his thick meridians, circulating endlessly. At the same time, the 5 elements soared hidden in the depths of his mind, which had been fused with the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts, began to emit a bright light under the scouring of the true essence. Refining and fusing the 5 divine beasts. This was the only thing that Chen Hao could look forward to right now. The Sword Dao realm and elemental will were not something that could be broken through overnight. The same was true for comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. Moreover, Chen Hao also clearly sensed that he would not be able to break through to the late nascent soul stage in a short period of time. The fusion of the 5 divine beasts was the only thing that could allow him to make progress in a short period of time. That night, in a large and luxurious restaurant, a graceful figure sat lazily on a soft and comfortable chair by herself, leaning against the window. She held the best and most expensive spirit wine in the restaurant in her hand and looked at the bustling lights outside the window. Her aura was not strong. In fact, it could even be said that she was very weak. Such a beautiful woman drinking alone in a place like a restaurant would definitely attract a lot of attention. Moreover, there would definitely be many people who would come up to chat her up, and there would even be many people who would have improper thoughts about her. However, this woman sat there for a full 4 hours, and not a single person approached her. Even if there were people who wanted to approach her, when they were 30 feet away from her, they would feel an inexplicable fear that came from the depths of their hearts, and they would not dare to come any closer. Although the woman's gaze was fixed outside the window, she could clearly hear the discussions of the cultivators in the restaurant, which were filled with almost no empty seats. In just one night, the woman's ears were already filled with calluses from listening to the names of several people. When the woman left in the middle of the night, she muttered in her heart, "Is the Eastern continent really as good as these people say? And there are a few of them?" Third update. If you have a monthly vote, please vote for Wuxian. Thank you. I will continue to work hard tomorrow. I have been working hard for the whole day today, but the first chapter was stuck too much and took up too much time. Wuxian's speed is not fast. Even if I try my best, I will not be able to reach the 5th or 6th update. I have tried my best. I will continue to work hard tomorrow. Chapter 322. On the second day, there were 12 rounds of competition. In all the even-numbered rounds, Chen Hao still managed to clear all the rounds by himself. In the odd-numbered rounds, Yi Feishue and Helian Wuzi finally had a chance to fight. But they were all stopped by Helian Wuzi's terrifying strength, which made Long Yukong unable to vent his frustrations for an entire day. Moreover, Long Yukong also noticed that Helian Wuzi, who had the same result as him during the test, was ranked behind him due to the difference in realm. But now, Helian Wuzi's terrifying combat power was already much stronger than his. Note: Helian Wuzi's test result was misremembered by Dark Mountain. The front has been corrected. Helian Wuzi and Long Yukong both got 86. Sorry, Leng Yihan's performance was not inferior to Chen Hao's. Everyone was surprised, especially when they found out that Chen Hao and Leng Yihan were the first and second runners-up of the 100 Empire ranking 3 years ago, tied. Some meddlesome cultivators even gave Chen Hao and Leng Yihan a very awesome nickname, the Legendary Twins. In 2 days, there were 22 rounds of competition. Other than the top 10 sects, only the Zhaixing sect and the Wandan Pavilion could maintain their winning streak. Now, more than half of the group sect battles had been completed. There were a total of 295 sects qualified. Groups 1 to 5 had 30 sects, and groups 6 to 10 had 29 sections. This meant that the Zhaixing sect only had 6 matches left. By now, it was clear to everyone that Group SIX's Star-Picking sect and Group 9's Myriad Pill Pavilion, under the leadership of Chen Hao and Leng Yihan, the two monstrous geniuses, would take second place without much suspense. They were looking forward to seeing how Chen Hao and Leng Yihan would perform when the Zhaixing sect met the Sky Sword sect, and the Wandan Pavilion met the Piao Miao sect. If there were no surprises, the last match of each group would be between the strongest sect in the group and the 9th rank sect. From the looks of it, Leng Yihan and Gu Xing, Chen Hao and Wu Ruochen would definitely face each other in the final round, which would be tomorrow's even-numbered 6th round. How would the dark horses, Chen Hao and Leng Yihan, perform when faced with two veteran geniuses? Would it go dark all the way, or would it be suppressed by Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing? Without a doubt, this was what everyone looked forward to the most. Especially since news of the conflict between Lone Star and Chen Hao had already spread. Almost everyone knew about it. If these two met, it would definitely be a battle of life and death. The next day at 7 a.m., the entire martial arts practice field was filled with a sea of people, so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The buzzing sounds of discussion resounded in every corner of the martial arts practice field. Ever since the first day Chen Hao, Xia Yuyu, Leng Yihan, and Zhao Yuanqing sat together, the four of them had been sitting together for the past 2 days, regardless of whether they came early or late. Moreover, he had undoubtedly become the center of attention of the entire martial arts practice field. For the past 2 days, Wu Ruochen had a gloomy expression on his face, as if his father had died. Until now, although he was still unhappy, he knew that the sect master's arrangement was right. His opponents were Gu Xing and Chu Qingtian. Before he fought with the two of them, it would be unwise for him to expose some of his trump cards because of Chen Hao. Gu Xing's expression still did not change, but the battle intent in his heart was rising. Leng Yihan, who was in the same group, had displayed strength that was no less shocking than Chen Hao. Moreover, Gu Xing could faintly feel that Leng Yihan had not displayed his true strength until now. The time has come. Let's begin. Following the Yuan Gate Master's words, 10 judges suddenly appeared in the 10-sided arena. First group, White Cloud Sect vs Sky Eagle Sect. Please enter. Second group, Sword Rain Pavilion vs Tyrant Blade Sect. Please enter. 9th group, Floating Mist Sect vs Myriad Pill Pavilion. Please enter. Crash. As the judges in the 10-sided arena announced one after another, there were no abnormalities until the 8th group. However, when it came to the 9th group, the entire martial arts practice field was in an uproar. Including the numerous sect masters on the rostrum, they were a little surprised. What was going on? The ninth group, the match between Myriad Pill Pavilion and Floating Mist Sect, was expected to be the most exciting match in the ninth group. If there were no surprises, the judges should have arranged for it to be the last match. However, no one expected it to appear in the first match. The buzzing sound of discussion immediately resounded throughout the martial arts practice field. They all expressed their dissatisfaction with the judges' arrangement. Yes, dissatisfaction. Because, in the ninth group, everyone was looking forward to the match between Lung Yihan and Gu Xing. However, if it was arranged in the first round, the order of appearance would be from the weakest to the strongest. No matter how powerful Lung Yihan was, it would be impossible for him to meet Gu Xing in the last round. Hee. Seeing everyone's gaze on him, the Floating Mist Sect master smiled slightly and said without any embarrassment, "That's right. I specifically ordered it. This Lung Yihan's strength is not inferior to the top geniuses of our 9th grade sections. If Gu Xing meets him at this time, you will benefit from it. I can't let Gu Xing suffer this loss. If they want to fight, let them fight when they reach the top 20. That's only fair. Brother Gu is right. Chen Hao is the same." Today's third round will be the match between our Sky Sword Sect and the Star-Picking Sect. Ha! The Sky Sword Sect master smiled slightly and spoke in support. This guy and the Floating Mist Sect master had met last night to discuss this matter and immediately hit it off. He believed that the others had nothing to say. After all, it was only the order of appearance. The sect tournament was a round-robin, so there was not much difference whether it was early or late. It could not change the result. It was also because of this that the judges had the power to arrange the matches on their own. You two old guys really can't take any losses? However, it seems that you don't trust your own disciples, huh? The Yuan sect master said proudly. That's good too. Lung Yihan breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that the Myriad Pill Pavilion and the Floating Mist Sect would appear. The Floating Mist Sect did not want Gu Xing to expose his strength early, and Lung Yihan did not want to do the same. Lung Yihan did not have the perverted idea of defeating the Floating Mist Sect like Chen Hao. The disparity in numbers and strength was too great. It was simply impossible. However, Chen Hao frowned slightly. Especially after he caught the conversation of the guys on the rostrum, he was even more depressed. It did not seem to affect the result, but that was what others thought. For Chen Hao, it was very different. If Chen Hao defeated Wu Ruochen, the momentum of the Sky Sword Sect would be greatly affected. As long as Chen Hao gritted his teeth and relied on his perverted physical talent and recovery ability, he might be able to exceed his limit and defeat dozens or even hundreds of people. The remaining people's cultivation would definitely not be as good as Long Yukong, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and Yi Feishua. Moreover, Helian Wuzi's recovery ability under the mystery of reincarnation was definitely beyond Chen Hao's imagination. Perhaps a miracle could really happen and he could achieve his grand goal. But with this, it undoubtedly made the hope even slimmer. How long could the Star-Picking Sect last with only 10 people? The Sky Sword Sect had nearly 200 people. Most importantly, under such circumstances, even if Chen Hao fought to the end, he would have exhausted his vital essence and overdrawn his essence, qi, and spirit. At that time, if he fought against Wu Ruochen in her peak state, what were his chances of winning? These were two completely different concepts. Gu Xing, who was sitting not far away, was also quite surprised. However, his expression did not change, and only the fighting spirit in his heart slowly retracted. The competition began with a bang. Without a doubt, in the first round of the first round, the 9 people became the focus of the entire martial arts practice field. Win as many rounds as you can. This is the time to show the true strength of our Myriad Pill Pavilion. A 7th grade sect is too low for us. This time, not only will we be promoted to an 8th grade sect, but we will also be the top existence among 8th grade sects. Don't be afraid, fight with your spirit. When you return to the sect, you will be greatly rewarded. The elder of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, when the sect's weakest disciple appeared, transmitted a message to his disciple at the same time. Up until now, the myriad pill pavilion's achievements had been quite dazzling because of Leng Yihan. They were already the top existence among 7th grade sections. This time, there was no doubt that they would be promoted to an 8th grade sect. If they performed better, they could definitely become the top existence among 8th grade sections. Their sect's foundation was no less than that of an 8th grade sect. Yihan, just do your best. Your real stage is after the top 20. Don't expose your trump card for now. Hearing the elder's message, Leng Yihan nodded slightly. The 7th grade Myriad Pill Pavilion had a total of 23 people who were officially qualified for the competition. The 9th grade Floating Mist sect had a total of 184 people, second only to the Yuan Gate and Sky Sword sect. After a vigorous battle for half an hour, the 22 people of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, except for Leng Yihan, were all annihilated. However, the results were satisfactory to the Myriad Pill Pavilion. 22 people eliminated 34 people with the lowest cultivation from the Floating Mist sect. Sigh, the 22 of us are not as strong as the 9 of you. Leng Yihan shook his head and said to Chen Hao. After that, his figure flashed and rushed to the arena. As the first master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion and the only one left, the moment Leng Yihan appeared on the arena, the entire arena began to buzz with discussion again. Guess, how many rounds can Leng Yihan win in a row? Right now, the Myriad Pill Pavilion has only eliminated 34 people, and they are all at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm. There are more than 10 people at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm, followed by more than 30 at the peak of the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Although Leng Yihan is at the early stage of the incarnation realm, I'm afraid 50 people is his limit. More than 50 people? This guy has eliminated at least 100 people. Chen Hao said softly when he heard the crowd's discussion. How, you know him very well? Xia Yuyu asked with a little surprise. If Leng Yihan could eliminate 100 people, the last 10 people would all be at the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. How strong would his true essence be? I know him, but the most important thing is that this guy has to compete with me at all times. Since he went first, he will definitely challenge his limits and grit his teeth. Chen Hao said with certainty. First update. Chapter 323. 55. He defeated everyone from the peak of the early stage to the peak of the mid-stage nascent soul realm. More than 50 people, and all of them are stronger than their cultivation level. He doesn't seem to have used up much energy. This is his true strength, right? Even Chen Hao can't compare to him. Damn, how can he hide his aura so well? Our cultivation levels aren't low, right? I'm a half-step incarnation realm cultivator, but I can't even sense his aura. How can we fight him? Me too. Strange, how can his concealment skills be so good? In the Sky City, Chen Hao and Chen Shui also showed amazing concealment skills. Did he learn it from Chen Hao? A disciple who had entered the Sky City said with a frown. He clearly remembered that in the last month when the Sky City opened the core palace area, Chen Hao and Chen Shui only revealed their aura when the transmission light pillar appeared. Today's Leng Yihan had displayed such a powerful concealment technique as soon as he appeared. Every opponent was effortlessly defeated in one move at the smallest cost. One had to know that the arena used for the intersect competition did not conceal all auras. This was to let the disciples watching the battle gain the most. Therefore, the disciples who were closest to Leng Yihan were all shocked when they saw his battle. Even Xia Yuyu, Chu Qingtian, and the others were shocked. 70 gasps of astonishment could be heard from the crowd. No one had expected Leng Yihan to be so powerful. Moreover, there were still no signs of him being overdrawn. What did this mean? Although Leng Yihan was in the early stage incarnation realm, ants could still kill an elephant. This was a continuous battle. To kill an ant, you would have to stomp your feet and waste some energy, right? Moreover, the opponent was not an ant. There was a difference in cultivation levels, but as a disciple of a 9th rank sect, who didn't have powerful skills. The power he showed was absolutely terrifying. But looking at the situation, Leng Yihan was likely to kill 100 people. This was a miracle that had never happened before in the cultivation world. How, his concealment skills are amazing. Even if I meet him, I can only sense him when he attacks. Xia Yu stared at Leng Yihan, who had once again disappeared from everyone's sight, and finally couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Chen Hao. This was to completely restrain one's aura and merge it with everything in the world. Before he attacks, unless it's someone 2 levels higher than him, I'm afraid it's really difficult to sense him. However, you don't have to worry. He wouldn't dare to use this kind of concealment technique when facing a powerful opponent. Chen Hao whispered. Perhaps only Chen Hao was not surprised by Leng Yihan's performance. In the past, Leng Yihan's carving skills were 1 or 2 levels higher than Chen Hao's. Now, Chen Hao, who had not practiced carving for a long time, was still inferior to Leng Yihan in this aspect. But Chen Hao didn't care at all. Because Leng Yihan's concealment technique was no longer effective against him. It wasn't that Chen Hao could catch him, but that Chen Hao could use the moment Leng Yihan released his aura to unleash his strongest attack. This was the result of Chen Hao's crazy cultivation in the past few months. He had already formed an instinctive reaction to the solitary sword tactic in his subconscious. There was no need to calculate, no need to catch. It was like a passive skill. Sister Lan Lan said that your concealment skills are also quite good. Leng Yihan and I cultivate the same kind. It's just that my level is slightly lower than his, Chen Hao said with a slight smile. Did he teach you? It's a bit complicated. I'll tell you later. Chen Hao hesitated slightly and didn't tell her about his father and Leng Yihan's master. After stepping into the world of cultivation for so long, Chen Hao's knowledge was far beyond that of an ordinary person. The more he knew, the more Chen Hao felt that his father was unfathomable. He was afraid that it wasn't as simple as the Eastern continent. And this kind of carving technique that integrated everything in the world was a supreme existence that Chen Hao couldn't measure. 100. 100 people killed. There are only 50 people left in the Piaomiao sect. Heavens, there are already 16 peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators. There are still 40 peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators left, and they will definitely get stronger. 8 half-step incarnations and 2 incarnations. Does this guy want to kill all the peak late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators? Impossible. Didn't you notice that his attacks are taking longer and longer? I reckon that a few more would be his limit. On the rostrum, the pavilion master of the Myriad Pill Pavilion was so excited that he couldn't control himself even if he had a calm temperament. He knew that Leng Yihan was strong, and he knew that Leng Yihan had a height that made him look up 45 degrees. But he didn't expect that Leng Yihan's true strength was so strong. Especially when he saw all the powerful sect masters on the rostrum gasping in shock, he had the urge to roar to the sky. No one wasn't shocked. At this moment, even Chen Hao's light was completely overshadowed by Leng Yihan. The momentum of the 2 peerless geniuses seemed to have been broken. Leng Yihan became high and mighty, emitting an incomparably bright light. Hold on, hold on, hold on. On the stage, the true essence in Leng Yihan's dantian was on the verge of drying up. But at this moment he still clenched his teeth and his mind was as calm as water. Only a trace of obsession in his heart resounded in his mind. I have already reached the incarnation realm. If I lose to him again, I'm afraid I'll never be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. I can't lose to him again, I can't. His obsession was burning. At this moment, Leng Yihan was more determined than ever. Faintly, the scene of Chen Hao and Xia Yu sitting together appeared in his mind from time to time. Even Leng Yihan himself didn't know what kind of thoughts this was. In his opinion, it was to surpass Chen Hao. In fact, subconsciously he had already regarded Xia Yu as his biggest opponent. This was a strange feeling. It came from another her. Of course, Leng Yihan's persistence was only in terms of physical strength, true essence, and spirit. From the beginning to the end, he didn't show his trump card or killer move. First, this was not the time to expose it. Second, if he exposed it, his consumption would increase exponentially. It was impossible to defeat so many people in a row. When Leng Yihan completed the 100 slaughter, Chen Hao didn't care much. After all, it was within his expectations. But when Leng Yihan defeated another 16 people, Chen Hao's face showed a trace of surprise. He looked at Leng Yihan with a trace of admiration. Chen Hao could clearly feel that Leng Yihan's consumption had reached the point of exhaustion, but he still had no intention of stopping. This kind of perseverance and tenacity was not something an ordinary person could achieve. And if he was careless, he would pay a heavy price. Finally, when the floating mist sect's disciples' expressions became more and more ugly, more and more serious and fearful, the floating mist sect's sect master felt ashamed, and Gu Xing's expression became shocked and aghast. Leng Yihan appeared and disappeared like a ghost and lightly pierced through the last nascent soul realm disciple. He said, "We lost." But at this moment, the entire martial arts practice field, except for the 9 arenas, was silent. Everyone stared blankly at the pale-faced but unharmed Leng Yihan. But the 10,000 pill pavilion lost to the floating mist sect. But Leng Yihan won. With his strange and terrifying strength, he won the respect of the hundreds of thousands of people in the martial arts practice field. He defeated the 9th-rank floating mist sect's 140 genius disciples by himself, leaving only 10 people. Of the 10 people left, the lowest cultivation was at the half-step incarnation realm. If that was not the case, everyone believed that Leng Yihan would continue to fight. When Leng Yihan floated back to Chen Hao's side like a light breeze, the entire martial arts arena was in an uproar. Leng Yihan looked at Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu's expressions. Although he wanted to say something, he was too weak. His eyes carried a trace of pride and provocation. He glanced at Chen Hao and directly swallowed a large amount of pure spiritual herbs. But Chen Hao's sudden words almost caused this fellow to spit out the spirit medicine that was in his mouth. Always being chased, never being surpassed. You did well this time. Well, it's just not bad. Chen Hao originally didn't want to say anything. After all, the tenacity that Leng Yihan displayed this time was something that even Chen Hao admired in his heart. But this guy was already like this. Why did he come back and give him a provocative look? If he didn't say anything, wouldn't he be too arrogant? What about you? Hurry up and recover. Chen Hao avoided Leng Yihan's eyes and leaned back lazily. Okay, I want to see how many you can win in a row. If you lose, you owe me another promise. Leng Yihan stared at Chen Hao and said, 1 is too little. How about 2? Let's settle it in one go. No, only 1 at a time. Leng Yihan frowned slightly and said, after saying that, he couldn't take it anymore and directly entered a half-cultivation state. He had just exhausted his energy. Before the next round, he had enough time to recover. While the two were talking, Xia Yuyu looked at them curiously. She already felt that Leng Yihan was strange. But the conversation between the two and Leng Yihan's eyes made her feel even more strange. Xia Yuyu couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Moreover, listening to the conversation between the two, Xia Yuyu understood that the two seemed to have a deep relationship. The competition was still going on. In the last few rounds of the competition, there was no doubt that every match was of equal strength. In terms of time, it was naturally much slower than the previous 2 days. In the second round, the star-picking sect met another 8th-rank sect, and it was a very strong one. Knowing that he would meet the Sky Sword sect in the 3rd round, Chen Hao was naturally very depressed. Did he do it on purpose? Second update. I have something to do tonight. 2 updates for today. Chapter 324. 34 people from the 8th rank sect had passed the test. 3 of them were at the half step to the incarnation stage and 10 were at the peak of the late stage nascent soul stage. Just these 13 people alone would consume a lot of Chen Hao's energy. Of course, the premise was that Chen Hao still used the same sword. After thinking for a while, Chen Hao did not make any changes in the end. Furthermore, he did not give Long Yakong, Helian Wuzi, and the others a chance. 34 swords seemed to have easily defeated the 8th rank sect. However, after defeating them, Chen Hao sat down cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. Before the next round, Chen Hao's freakish recovery ability would allow him to return to his peak state. Long Yakong was very depressed. Up until now, he was the only one from the star-picking sect who hadn't made a move yet. Before coming here, the originally arrogant him had already lowered his head and deliberately put in a few good words with Chen Hao and Heli and Wuzi. If it wasn't a sect that was too strong, he asked the two of them to go easy on him and give him a chance to drink some soup. After all, in the front, there was Chen Hao, this freak, and in the back, there was Heli and Wuzi, this tiger that stood in his way. He was stuck in the middle and didn't have a chance to perform. This was a very depressing thing. However, Chen Hao still did not give him a chance. However, when Chen Hao began to cultivate and recover, he sent a message to Long Yakong, Heli and Wuzi, and the others from the Xiaoxing sect. Heli and Wuzi and the others widened their eyes as if they were dumbfounded. However, everyone, including Long Yakong, had their eyes glittering brightly. Their blood and battle intent were burning fiercely as they locked their gazes in the direction of the Heavenly Sword sect, as if they were on the verge of exploding at any second. No one expected Chen Hao to have such a bold ambition. And it was this ambition that made the Xiaoxing sect boil with excitement. When the names of the Xiaoxing sect and the Sky Sword sect were called out by the referee, the disciple who was ranked 10th in the Xiaoxing sect immediately let out a long howl. It was like a wolf's howl, filled with endless fighting spirit and madness, and rushed into the arena. This caused the crowd, which was already buzzing with discussion due to the clash between the two great powers, to widen their eyes. Was this disciple of the star-picking sect crazy? Yes, he was crazy. Even though his cultivation wasn't high, the essence, energy, and spirit of his entire body was like a ball of blazing flames that was filled with lofty sentiments. His expression and posture seemed as if he was about to do something great that would make everyone bow down in admiration and worship. He'd forgotten life and death, forgotten everything, and only fought. This disciple's talent was ordinary. At the peak of the middle nascent soul realm, he barely managed to pass the test. He didn't have the strength of a super genius that leapfrogged above him. He had relied on his own cultivation to meet the requirements. However, such a mediocre disciple had actually defeated 3 Heavenly Sword sect disciples who were at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. Not only that, but they all possessed even stronger attacks than him. Even though he was clearly on the verge of death, he still refused to admit defeat and challenged a 4th opponent. It was as if a small universe had exploded. Although he had lost to the 4th opponent, he had still managed to reduce the 4th opponent's combat prowess. The first one was so crazy, the second one was so crazy, and so was the 5th one. The 5 weakest disciples of the star-picking sect had actually won against 23 Heavenly Sword sect disciples in front of everyone's eyes. When each of them returned, they had all been severely injured and exhausted of their energy. However, their eyes were still filled with fanaticism, as if they were possessed as they stared fixedly at the arena. What kind of concept was it to win against the godlike Heavenly Sword sect? Regardless of whether they succeeded or not, this was the craziest thing they had ever done in their lives. Tantai Lian entered the arena. She was dressed in a long pink dress that accentuated her graceful figure. Her beautiful face was like a lotus flower that had emerged from the mud. She had already reached the peak of the middle nascent soul stage, and the aura she exuded was more terrifying than any of her previous opponents. The battle hadn't even begun, but under the terrifying battle intent, the glow of flames was already faintly rising from her body. However, her entire state of mind was as heavy as a mountain. What she needed to do was to defeat as many opponents as possible. In the first 2 days of the competition, Tantai Lian had already displayed a power that was completely beyond her level, especially when she released the power of the Phoenix inheritance. Even a half-step incarnation could only lose once in front of her. This time, against the high and mighty 9th rank sect of the Cultivation world and the Heavenly Sword sect that had nearly 20 times more people than them, how many could Tantai Lian win? Although there was no result yet, everyone in the martial arts arena already knew from the momentum of the 5 people in front of the star-picking sect that this time, the star-picking sect, which only had 10 people, would definitely create a more terrifying result than the myriad pill pavilion. Because of Tantai Lian, because of Heli and Wuzi, and because of Long Yakong, who hadn't had a chance to fight from the beginning to the end. No one knew what Long Yukong was like, but Helian Wuzi was more terrifying than Tantai Lien. No one doubted this. 3 monstrous geniuses appeared at the same time in the small star-picking sect. They were destined to be stronger than Leng Yihan, who only had 1 monstrous genius, right? There was no fighting, and the first move was the ultimate move. Of course, the so-called ultimate move wasn't a desperate move that consumed a lot of energy. It was a move that could ensure that the opponent would be defeated in a few moves and would consume the least energy. Amidst everyone's shock, Tantai Lien completed the first 10 kills. Using the 7-star secret technique, she defeated 10 Heavenly Sword sect disciples in a row. At this time, Tantai Lien's energy was almost exhausted. But everyone knew that Tantai Lien's victory would continue because she hadn't released the power of the Phoenix's nirvana. Phoenix Heavenly Fire, Level 6, the Realm of Great Success. When Tantai Lien released her blazing flames time and time again, defeating her opponents in a miserable manner, the entire martial arts practice field was shocked. No one expected that Tantai Lien had been hiding the power of the Phoenix's nirvana all this time. In fact, she had indeed been hiding it. When she stepped into the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm, she had already integrated the 6th level of the Phoenix's inheritance and truly stepped into the realm of great success. Unfortunately, even if Tantai Lien controlled the Nirvana Heavenly Fire, she couldn't hold on for long. After defeating the 7th, which was a total of 17, Tantai Lien no longer had any energy left. 6 people defeated 40 people. Amazing, really amazing. This Tantai Lien's ability is probably not even a half step to the Incarnation Realm Master, right? The power of the Phoenix Heavenly Fire is really too strong. Definitely not a match. The 6th level of the Heavenly Fire is the Realm of Great Success. It's much more terrifying than the Realm of Great Success. Moreover, this is the most terrifying flame in the world. It's enough to burn everything in the world. She's only at the peak of the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm now, but she's integrated to such a high realm. If she ascends to the Incarnation Realm, what will it be like? Just wait and see. There's still Helian Wuzi. No matter what, even if Chen Hao is slightly weaker than Leng Yihan, the star-picking sect's results won't be worse than the Myriad Pill Pavilion. The sect master of the Sky Sword sect, Wu Ruochen, and the others all looked extremely embarrassed. Especially the sect master of the Sky Sword sect. Compared to the sect master of the Faint Mist sect, he was no different. His old face was burning hot. Although out of the 193 disciples of the Sky Sword sect, the 40 that were eliminated were the weakest, and their cultivation levels were not high, the disparity was too great. Moreover, Helian Wuzi, who was stronger than Tantai Lien, had yet to appear. From Helian Wuzi's performance yesterday, it was likely that more people were eliminated. Originally, when he saw that the Faint Mist sect only had 10 people left after being defeated by Leng Yihan, he still despised them in his heart. But now, he was almost certain that the Sky Sword sect wasn't any better. Yi Feishue, who was at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm, was defeated after defeating 4 late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators. Although she couldn't compare to Tantai Lien, this result was still shocking for the star-picking sect. Then, Helian Wuzi finally appeared. She was wearing a white dress with long sleeves. Her cold, beautiful face exuded an icy aura. She was like a goddess of the moon, attracting the attention of everyone in the martial arts practice field. Clang. The Moonlight Sword was only a low-grade spirit weapon. The moment it was unsheathed, the sky and earth darkened. Even the light of the scorching sun was covered. Gusts of cold wind swept through the entire ring. Helian Wuzi could totally choose a high-grade spirit weapon, but she didn't. The Moonlight Sword was a gift that Chen Hao gave her before she stepped into the cultivation world. Moreover, she really liked the aura of the Moonlight Sword. She wasn't a sword maniac, but she had a sword maniac like Moue. This Helian Wuzi's moves and styles all contain an extremely profound aura. Even this old man is unable to see through it. I really don't know what kind of great opportunity she obtained. Her future achievements won't be inferior to Yu's. The Ling Tian sect leader's mind sensed the battle in the ring and thought to himself. As a leading figure in the Eastern Mainland's 9th grade sect, how sharp was his vision? However, it wasn't just him. Even the sect leaders of all the sects present couldn't see through the mystery of Helian Wuzi's body. This kind of mystery couldn't be felt at all when Helian Wuzi wasn't in a battle state. It would only appear during a battle, and it was very, very weak. However, it was such a weak aura that allowed Helian Wuzi's combat strength to increase by a lot. Especially in terms of recovery ability, it was even more terrifying. From the beginning to the end, Helian Wuzi didn't use any powerful killer moves. She adopted a completely different strategy from Tantai Lian. Firstly, Helian Wuzi's own realm was stronger than the opponent she was currently facing. Secondly, under the circumstances where Helian Wuzi didn't consume much energy, she had an astonishing recovery speed. In this aspect, even Chen Hao couldn't compare. Therefore, she naturally wouldn't waste her energy. Round moons bloomed in the ring. Helian Wuzi was like a goddess dancing under the cold moonlight. She was neither hot nor cold, but she made her opponents fall in the ring one by one. Her beautiful little face and graceful figure made the young disciples widen their eyes and forget to breathe. In the entire martial arts practice field, other than the 9-sided ring, all the spectators stared blankly at Helian Wuzi in the ring. They silently counted the number of disciples who fell in the ring. First update, come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 325. The number of people increased one by one. Everyone's eyes opened wider and wider. 20, 30, 40. At this moment, even Chen Hao's eyes widened in shock. His black, deep eyes shone with a bright light as he stared at Helian Wuzi, who was blooming with light and resplendent on the arena. Even he didn't expect Helian Wuzi to be able to do this, and the number was still increasing. Her absolutely beautiful figure was like a dancing fairy. That originally extremely weak profound aura seemed to have strengthened by a sliver as Helian Wuzi put all of her heart and soul into the battle. But it was this little bit that made Helian Wuzi's recovery ability even more terrifying. She had no distractions, only a trace of obsession. She began to witness the miracles that happened to Chen Hao in the secular world. No one trusted Chen Hao more than she did. So, when Chen Hao said that he wanted everyone to work hard and take down the Sky Sword sect together, she believed more than anyone else that Chen Hao wasn't simply encouraging everyone to achieve the best results. He really wanted to take it down. A small 3rd grade sect with only 10 people had taken down a 9th grade sect with 193 genius disciples, a 9th grade sect that stood at the pinnacle of the cultivation world. This was crazy. Then she would be crazy with him. She was pure and determined. That was to do her best to block the enemies for Chen Hao. She could block the enemies. Cough cough. When Helian Wuzi won 68 matches in a row and eliminated the 108th disciple of the Sky Sword sect, Lung Yihan couldn't help but cough. She's an expert at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. She wouldn't want to solve all the obstacles for you, would she? At this moment, there were still 85 people in the Sky Sword sect, and the lowest cultivation was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. When Lung Yihan asked, Xia Yuyu's beautiful eyes also flashed with disbelief as she looked at Chen Hao. If possible, of course she wants to. She's almost at her limit. Below the late nascent soul stage, she can use her advantage in cultivation and strength to defeat them one by one. However, it's not so easy to reach the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Chen Hao said thoughtfully. Sure enough, after a peak late nascent soul stage expert from the Heaven Sword sect stepped onto the stage, Helian Wuzi, who had been winning by relying on her unhurried attacks that consumed the least amount of energy, finally displayed the only consummate skill she had cultivated, the Heaven-tier consummate skill, Cloud Cleaving Sword Art. Just like when Tantai Lian released her Nirvana Heavenly Fire at the end, Helian Wuzi's Cloud-Splitting Sword Art, which contained the mysteries of reincarnation, displayed an even more terrifying power. One after another, peak late nascent soul stage experts fell under her sword. If Helian Wuxi's previous performance had shocked people apart from her monstrous recovery ability, then at this moment, what shocked people was her valiant and terrifying battle prowess. The Moonlight Sword brought out the power of the cloud-cleaving sword technique to the extreme. Every sword strike carried the impermanence of the clouds and the unpredictability of the mysteries. When the sword broke through the clouds, it was like a full moon piercing through the layers of dark clouds, leaving the opponent with nowhere to hide. Helian Wuxi tried her best. Her last sword strike consumed all her energy and defeated the 18th peak late nascent soul stage expert. To be exact, it was a draw. When Chen Hao directly stepped onto the stage and carried the seriously injured Helian Wuxi back, the entire martial arts practice field emitted a monstrous buzzing sound, no less than the fluctuation caused by Lung Yihan just now. Helian Wuxi, who was only at the peak late nascent soul stage, had won 86 rounds in a row. 18 of her opponents were all at the peak late nascent soul stage. What kind of concept was this? She couldn't be compared with Lung Yihan, but that was because Helian Wuxi's realm was not as high as Lung Yihan's. If she could advance to the incarnation stage, perhaps even Lung Yihan would be inferior to Helian Wuxi. Moreover, this was a stunning young girl. In the martial arts practice field, shocked cultivators. No one doubted that after this year's intersect competition, Helian Wuxi, Lung Yihan, Chen Hao, and the relatively weaker Tantai Lian would all be famous in the entire eastern continent. They were monstrous geniuses, geniuses that only appeared once in 1,000 years. They were geniuses that couldn't be measured by ordinary thinking at all. The background of the sect, the conditions, they were all fleeting clouds. Such monstrous geniuses, even if they were just itinerant cultivators, were bound to bloom the brightest light. Boom! With a loud sound, everyone's gaze returned to the arena. Long Yukong, who was half a step to the incarnation stage, who had been suppressed for more than 2 days, was like a raging dragon coming out of the abyss under Chen Hao's ambition, the performance of the star-picking sect disciples, and especially the amazing performance of Tantai Lian and Helian Wuxi. He defeated a peak late nascent soul stage expert of the Sky Sword sect in one move. Yes, it was one move. Long Yukong was very clear that he didn't have the monstrous talent of Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian. He could only rely on his strongest attack and the most thunderous means to defeat as many opponents as possible. That was all. Perhaps it was the eruption after being suppressed for too long that made Long Yukong burst out like a small universe, burning and venting, and exerting 150% of his combat strength. He clearly felt that his essence, energy, and spirit had never reached such a state of excitement, fullness, and smoothness. After defeating the 5th master at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, he faintly felt that after this battle, he would truly enter the peak of the half-step incarnation stage. It meant that he would be able to trigger divine punishment and enter the incarnation stage. When the 10th opponent was defeated by him, Long Yukong had also exhausted his energy. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were shining with excitement. He was brought down from the arena by Yi Feishue. He had no regrets in this battle. The star-picking sect, a 3rd-rank sect, eliminated 136 people from the Sky Sword sect, a 9th-rank sect, with 9 people. The Sky Sword sect only had 57 people left. Among them, 42 were at the peak late nascent soul stage, 13 were at the peak of the incarnation stage, 1 was at the early stage of the incarnation stage, and 1 was at the peak of the middle stage of the incarnation stage. Of course, the one at the peak of the middle stage of the incarnation stage was Wu Ruochen. Phew! The star-picking sect is too powerful. It's Chen Hao's turn. Do you think Chen Hao will meet Wu Ruochen? It should be difficult. Although there are only 57 people left, they are all above the peak late nascent soul stage. There are also 13 peak late incarnation stage experts and 1 early incarnation stage expert. If he wants to meet Wu Ruochen, he will have to be 30% stronger than Lung Yihan. Otherwise, it's impossible. That's true. We can't measure these monsters. It's hard to say until the last moment. What's hard to say? Let alone Wu Ruochen, Even if Meng Lang and Chen Hao defeat all the peak late nascent soul stage experts and peak late incarnation stage experts, they won't be able to continue the competition. The two people in the sixth group must be Wu Ruochen, Meng Lang, and Chen Hao. How can Chen Hao fight Meng Lang and Wu Ruochen when he is not in his peak state? Therefore, even if Chen Hao is stronger than Leng Yihan, he will stop at the peak of incarnation stage. Amidst the buzzing sounds of discussion of the crowd, Chen Hao flashed up onto the arena, and his extraordinarily handsome and angular face flickered with a wisp of coldness that had never appeared and arrogance that came from his bones. Then, when the referee put down his hand with a hiss, Chen Hao, who had always defeated his opponents with a single sword strike, had actually strangely transformed into a gust of wind this time and completely disappeared from everyone's line of sight. At this moment, everyone had an illusion. Could it be Leng Yihan? He can't be thinking of eliminating the Sky Sword sect, right? Seeing Chen Hao use the Heart Sutra of merging with heaven and earth, Leng Yihan's heart skipped a beat. His eyes widened and he could not help but murmur. Eliminate the Sky Sword sect? Xia Yuyu turned to look at Leng Yihan in surprise. I should have thought of it. Leng Yihan glanced at Xia Yuyu and continued, only he would dare to make such an unbelievable decision. Otherwise, the people of the Zhaixing sect would not be so crazy. What a pervert! Unreasonable! Crazy! How he really wants to eliminate the Sky Sword sect? Xia Yuyu asked again in disbelief. Of course. If not, why would he change his attack method? Just watch. Can he do it? I don't know. You ask me, but who should I ask? Leng Yihan said and ignored Xia Yu. Xia Yuyu frowned slightly and did not ask any more. She was even more certain that Leng Yihan was not normal. Although Xia Yuyu was simple, she was extremely intelligent. With her appearance, talent, and strength, who would disdain to talk to her if she was a normal youth? This was not Xia Yuyu's conceit, but the truth. Boom. In just an instant, a scream of terror, accompanied by a terrifying explosion of energy, exploded from the arena. It can't be, right? Everyone's eyeballs almost fell to the ground when they saw the scene in front of them. Xia Yu, Helian Wuzi, Tentai Lien, and everyone from the star-picking sect, as well as those who were friends with Chen Hao, felt their hearts skip a beat. Even Leng Yihan, who understood Chen Hao's strength the most, was shocked. He almost jumped up. Crazy? Leng Yihan was speechless and extremely shocked. His opponent had been defeated. He did not even feel the slightest bit of energy fluctuation before he felt a chill in his chest. A treasure sword had pierced through his heart when it was just a few milliseconds away. This feeling of impending death caused him to instantly circulate all the true essence in his body and blast it behind him. The result was that Chen Hao, who had strangely appeared behind him, was sent flying. Everyone's shock and astonishment came from this. They were shocked at what method Chen Hao had used to pierce through his opponent without emitting the slightest bit of energy. They were shocked at how Chen Hao, who had done this, seemed to be completely unprepared. Similarly, there were no energy fluctuations, and he was sent flying by his opponent's critical strike. Only Leng Yihan knew that Chen Hao had not only used heaven and earth to hide his tracks, he had also taken the risk of using a carving technique that required him to restrain all energy to pierce his opponent. Without a doubt, Chen Hao's energy consumption would be close to zero, but he would have to face his opponent's critical strike. Leng Yihan would not dare to use this technique no matter what. But Chen Hao had used it. Chen Hao, who had rolled to his feet, stood up as if nothing had happened. He had used pure physical strength to block his opponent's strike. The consumption was close to zero. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. That you're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.